So I run out the house, and when I'm running out, I'm like, "Hey, my girl's in trouble! My girl's in trouble!" And I start running down the street, and I start running towards her house, the route I know she probably took. I'm running down the street, and I'm thinking, I'm like, "Shoot, she got in a car accident, or some rivals saw her car, which I used to always be in and be stupid in, and shot at it, ran her off the road or something. She's in trouble. She's in danger." Got in the car, and they come in, they pick me up. They're like, "Get in, get in." As soon as we turn to the left on Midland, there's a church there, and I just see her car off to the side, surrounded by cop cars. So I jump out the car and I start running towards the police officers. So I run up with my hands up, and I'm like, "Hey, that's my girlfriend. Is she okay? Is she okay?" As I got closer, I saw these dudes were fully suited, rifles, and that's when I'm like, "Oh shit!" And they turn around, they see me, and they just start telling me, "Get the fuck on the ground."
Dude, thanks for coming back. We had a little hiccup, but you know what? We're going to do it again, and things happen for a reason. We got a cool dude here with us now, so he gets to see it. It was just a practice run.
I appreciate you, bro. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited to do it a second time, bro. So thank you.
Yeah, you have a really cool live, so I'd love to hear it a second time. And let's just kick it back from the top. Where are you from?
So I was born in Grangeville, Idaho. Now, the only reason I was born in Grangeville is because where my parents lived, which was Whitebird, Idaho, didn't have a hospital back then. And so this was 88. Parents went to the town over. I was born in Grangeville. We were there in Whitebird for about 7 years, and then came to Nampa, and I believe it was 1994, and I was about 7 years old. And then, raised here in Nampa.
And your parents were doing what again?
So my parents came from Mexico, and the reason they went up there to Whitebird was my dad was for a job opportunity. My dad was ranching up there. And so that's what my parents were doing. We had other family members up there, and they were just working. It was a work opportunity, and so they were doing that. And they moved to Nampa for opportunity for us, for the kids, right? And so that's why they came on over to Nampa.
And then you guys were saying that you were the only Latino family in the area, pretty much. So that was kind of like you guys felt like outsiders, didn't really.
Yes, and so we did have other family members up there, but it was just very limited. I mean, they had one school, and if I remember correctly, that school had like kindergarten to, I think it was either eighth or even like a high school. It had only a couple classrooms. And one of the things that does stick out is that when me and my brother were in school there, I remember the kids would call us names, and we didn't know exactly what those names were until we moved to Nampa and realized that the names were racial slurs, And so I think that, on top of a job opportunity, was what caused the move to come on over. My parents wanted to raise us here in Nampa, bigger, Hispanic, Latino population and whatnot. And that was a culture shock for me. Being up there, being one of the only, Hispanic families up there, and then coming here, I was like, oh, wait a minute, there's more of us, it was nice. At the same time, with that move coming on over, I have to admit that, my earliest memories are a type of gang activity and culture. Something that stands out was we were having a family get together, and I was young and I was running around, and I remember coming around the corner and seeing my brother get jumped by a handful of older kids, and it's about five kids, and they're kind of kicking him around. And I sat there and I was in shock, not knowing exactly what was going on. And next thing you know, I see him get up, shaking hands, hugs, congratulating them. And what they were doing is jumping him into a gang. And now, when I say gang, at that point, it was just a bunch of little knuckleheads, right? Nothing organized. I remember we had white bandanas for some reason, and we'd switch our names, our gang name every other week or whatnot. But shortly after that, about 2 weeks later, I was sitting there getting jumped in as well. And of course, they were taking it easy on me or whatever. But that was some of my earliest memories in Napa, was already being exposed to that culture.
You guys had never seen any of that up in like Grangeville or Whitebird or nothing like that, right?
Yeah, nothing like that. But as we grew older, we found out why that was a need at the time, right? Sticking together, group of kids in the neighborhood. We were up to, we were carrying pocket knives, but we were just maybe spray painting here and there. But one thing we would do is, we'd go over and fight the kids, like in the trailer park over, in the neighborhood over. So we were already getting in little like fights or whatnot, but it wasn't nothing crazy. But as we got older, and started getting exposed to the actual gang activity that was more organized here in Canyon County, we started getting involved in that.
Were you already kind of rebellious when you were in Grangeville? So when you moved to like this bigger city, then finding those people was a little bit like you were more just attracted to that, or was it just something
We were not. I wasn't rebellious at all. I was a shy, quiet kid. Um, but I quickly found out that you don't survive being the quiet, shy kid here, right? So it was just being surrounded by older, tougher kids that showed me. I was like, no, I'm gonna have to fight, right? But again, it wasn't nothing too crazy. It was just like little kid fights or whatnot. But I was a really good student in school. I didn't get in any trouble. It wasn't until we got older that we started getting into trouble. Well, I started getting into trouble. Specifically, I want to say I was about 15, 16 years old, and that's when I really got into it. One of the memories that does stick out is there was this older guy in the neighborhood, and he was much older than I was. And he saw me and he came up to me, and I had just bought in a belt. You know, this was a colored belt with like an old English letter in the front. It was a nice belt that I thought it was a nice belt back then. And the older guy told me, he's like, let me get that belt from you. And I remember I was scared, I was scared to death. And I remember saying no. He said, let me get that belt, else I'm gonna kick your ass. And yeah, I gave it to him. And I remember just the humiliation and the shame that came with that. And that stemmed from growing up and watching my parents always put their head down, always avoiding altercation, no confrontation. And if people would road rage on them or somebody would say something to them, they would never respond, put their head down. There would be times where even I would try to say something and they would hush me and yell at me, like, don't say nothing, never, cause any problems. And that stemmed from them coming from Mexico and just being real humble, right? They're like, we're here to work. We're here to make a life for ourselves. We're not here to cause problems. And so seeing them constantly, put their head down and then also just me holding that inside, I remember feeling that at that moment. And then after that situation with that older guy, I remember calling my cousin, and my cousin came over, and I just started crying in his arms, literally like a baby crying in his arms. And he's like, what's wrong? And I told him, like, this guy just like punked me out for my belt. I mean, I'm like 15 years old, so I'm already a teenager. And but again, just that humiliation and that shame. And I swore to him at that, I'm like, I will never let anyone ever make me feel like that again. And I remember I told myself, I promised myself, I'd rather die or go to prison than ever make myself feel like that, let anyone do that to me ever again. And it was a promise that I held, and it did. I have to say, it did. There was some growth in that, but at the same time, it did come with a lot of repercussions, right? A lot of trouble.
So up until that point, you were pretty shy. You weren't really like, you were still with the crowd. You were getting into some trouble, but you were just kind of in the back of the crowd, kind of a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Another big milestone situation there at that age was we were at Napa High, and there was this older kid that was constantly just punking me out as well, and picking on me, always trying to fight me. He thought he could kick my ass, and we were in the locker room one time after gym class, and he came up to me, got in my face, and everybody kind of circles around us, and they're watching us, and this kid pushes me, and I go flying. I'm a tiny kid. High school, freshman year, I'm probably 5'4". I kid you not, probably weigh 105, 110. I was a tiny kid. I go flying, fall on the ground. I get up. I'm scared to death. I'm trying to act like I'm not. I could feel my legs shaking, and then the teacher comes in, the PE teacher, coach comes in, and he's like, hey, what's going on? Break it up. And I was like so relieved that I didn't have to fight this guy. Now, my brother was there the whole time. My brother was watching it. And so I'm so relieved that the coach came in. Everybody, went their ways, and I'm walking out with my brother. And I remember trying to play it off like, oh, that was funny, huh? And my brother just looking at me and saying, nah, man. He's like, you made us look like bitches, and just walked away from me. And that hurt me so bad, Of course, I know my brother. We've talked about that, later on in life. And my brother, he's told me, I apologize, man. I was like, but no, that's what we had to do back then. And there was a certain standard and a certain way we had to act. But I remember that night going home, and I kid you not, no sleep. Stayed up all night doing push-ups, shadow boxing. I'm like, I'm going to fight this dude. Tomorrow I'm going to fight this guy. And sure enough, I had last period with them the next day. And all day, man, I could not pay attention in class. Couldn't even eat, didn't eat nothing for lunch. And last period came, and there we were. And he saw me, and he said, let's, again, kind of right back to that banter. He said, let's go fight. And this time I was like, let's do it. And there's a look of, of kind of, he was shocked. And he's like, yo, okay, we'll go to the bathroom and we'll fight after class. I said, all right, let's do it, man. I sat there, I tied my shoes as tight as they would go. And he told me, he's like, let's go, you get one guy and I'll bring one guy and then we'll fight. I said, okay. So I was going around looking for a homie that we called Slick, and I couldn't find him. He was like a tougher guy. But I ran into my brother and I said, hey, I'm going to go fight him right now. And brother's like, for real? I was like, yeah, I'm going to go fight him. So we went up to the bathroom and we fought. And we didn't know what we were doing, man. We were just swimming, hitting more air than anything, punching each other here and there, but nothing crazy. It was just a weak ass fight. And after it was over, I remember mid fight realizing that I wasn't, because I thought he was gonna kick my ass. He was an older guy, and I remember mid fight realizing he wasn't kicking my ass, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm just like trying even harder, and we're sitting there just going back and forth, and finally the fight gets broken up, and we're looking at each other, and I remember seeing him. There was a certain look in his eyes, a certain look on his face of like, I wouldn't say defeat, but like, oh wow. And we were looking at each other, and I saw that, and I'm like, oh, okay, I got him. Like, he's worried. There was a look of worry on his face. And I can't remember who it was. They're like, shake hands. And we did. We shook hands. I took off from the bathroom and got stopped right away by security, and ended up getting expelled. But that was the first little kind of glimpse of like, I'd gotten in fights as a kid, and we were like little kid fights, right? So nothing too crazy. A couple punches, somebody cries, takes off, and things like that. But now, as a teenager in high school, being older, I remember realizing, I'm like, that's not a big deal. I can do that. That's easy. I could take a couple punches. That's nothing. And so after that, I was like, oh no, I can definitely do this. And so what I started doing after that was just fighting a lot. It was a lot of fighting. And another thing was like, I have a little sister and an older brother, but I remember thinking like, I'm going to build a name for myself and build a reputation so that my little sister never has to get in a fist fight in her life. Like, I'm going to build a name for our family, or at least my siblings, where nobody can touch them, right? And so that was my goal, because I know what feeling unsafe felt like, and I know what being scared felt like. It was my whole childhood up to that point. And so like, I'm going to do that. If I can do anything, it's going to make sure that my sister feels safe, that my brother feels safe, and that harm doesn't come their way. And if it does, I'll take care of it, right? So I'd really try to step up and be that person for my siblings. And again, I kid you not, and I'm not over exaggerating, when there was a point in my life where I was fighting every week. And I remember one week specifically getting in 3 fist fights in 1 week. Because the reputation I wanted to build was, if you mess, they would call me Weasel. If you mess with Weasel, he's going to punch you. And I wasn't this badass kicking ass left and right. No, they were just fights, right? So I would get my ass kicked, or it would be a fair fight or whatnot. But I just wanted people to know there's going to be a repercussion if you mess with him or his family. And so it was a lot of fist fights. It was a lot of late nights going and breaking people's windows to their cars, popping tires, breaking house windows. I was making a point of like, I don't even care if you find out it was me. I want you to find out it was me, to let you know that you're not going to mess with me or my family. So that's kind of the path I took there in high school.
Was he more proud of you after you got into that fight in that high school?
He was. And one thing that I know, till this day, that hurts his heart is he saw that I kind of surpassed him in that lifestyle, right? That I went, okay, no, like this is if this is going to be me, I'm going to do it 100%. And we've had these conversations now as adults where he's like, man, I'm so sorry, because I feel like, he tells me, I feel like it's my fault that, you ended up going the path you did. And to a certain degree, but again, he was just trying to teach me the tools I needed to survive in the lifestyles we were living, right? So I see that it hurts his heart that I kind of took it further or whatnot. But at that time I did see that he was like, oh yeah, no, that's my brother. Like, that's my brother, So,
yeah.
But I kind of, in a sense, became the bigger brother in that I was taking care of business if I had to, if anybody would mess with them or my family.
Did he turn away from that life quicker than you did then?
He did. He ended up getting a full-time job. I remember he started working at AT&T, and he was probably 18, and he was making, 18-year-old back then. I think he was making like $40,000 a year. But I mean, this is an 18-year-old who still lives with his parents, making $40,000 a year. So he's just working all the time. And so then he's buying cars, he's wearing nice clothes. He's a big reason of why I dress the way I do, today. Because I always see him dressed up, and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Like, I want to be able to dress like that. So he did. He started just working his butt off or whatnot. And I was just out and about.
It sounds like you said that was what your parents were doing too. They were always working 6-7 days a week, right?
Yes.
So like, they didn't really know that you were in that life.
Mm-hmm.
And once it was to the point where they did find out you were old enough that it didn't really matter, you were already too far in.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so one, it's just 2 completely different cultures. They're from Mexico, right? And then they come here. They're naive to the gang stuff or whatnot, but just working nonstop. I remember as a kid, waking up in the mornings, and they'd be gone for work. And then I get home from school, we'd eat, we'd go out, we'd play, come back in, and then it's time for bed. And then but they'd be just getting home from work, and that was 5, 6, sometimes even 7 days a week. And so it wasn't a lack of support in the sense of like I always had a roof over my head, I always had food. It wasn't the best food. It was just a lack of their presence in my life, right? But that's what they have to do and had to do to build that foundation that I now stand on and my kids stand on. So now that I'm older, I get to see, I'm like, oh, they were doing what they had to do to ensure that their grandkids, my daughter, has a beautiful life. I have a better life than they did, but my kids have a way better life than they did, right? And so now as an adult, I get to realize that they were just doing what they could with what they had at the moment.
Did they ever tell you about their childhood, what it was like, and what they had to go through?
Yes,
back in Mexico, and why they wanted to get away.
It was chaos. So one thing that's funny, like in the Mexican culture, like we value and cherish our grandparents, right? And it's just like this family thing where it's like that's your grandparents, like you're proud of them. But as we got older, and they would tell me how their parents treated them, I built resentment for my grandparents. Honestly, I mean, my dad's real dad died when my dad was about I think it was like 6 or 7. Right. And after that, mom, I believe she remarried with somebody else. And then my dad was just sleeping from couch to couch, pretty much abandoned. My mom as well had both her parents, but a lot of just turmoil and chaos in the household. Right. Not a healthy environment, whatnot. And so they had it way worse. Right. And to them also coming from that, from that background and coming over here, their mentality is just work. Like our job, it's just to work and provide like roof, food, that's what we have to do. And then you take it from there. It was that, but they didn't even have time to invest in me, me and my brother. My little sister, a little different. She grew up and they were now established where they could invest in her a little bit more. But when I talk about it, when I'm saying investment, I don't mean money. I'm talking about like actually being there, being present in your life and being able to show up for you. Right. And when I remember that is till this day, but I kind of gauge it this way. I always say it's not about being a millionaire. It's about feeling like one. And so to me, success is the flexibility, right? I remember being a kid, being in elementary school, and I'd take the bus to school and I'd see these kids getting dropped off by their parents and getting picked up by their parents, or their parents would come and drop off cupcakes. And I'm like, who are these people? Are they millionaires? How are they free and flexible enough to drop their kid off, to drop off cupcakes, to pick their kids up, to put their kids in sport? Like I was judging success off that. And I still do to this day. Because I have that flexibility and I do feel like a millionaire. Not even close, but I get to drop my daughter off every morning at school. I get to show up to all the parent teacher conferences, all her cheer, all her basketball. I get to do all that.
Yeah, you started measuring wealth in time rather than currency.
Absolutely. And so that I mean, a combination of all that has really instilled like the values and priorities I have till this day is to ensure that I do have that flexibility and freedom to be there and be present for my kids, which is something that my parents did their best at. We're very limited on being able to do so. But when I look back and think about like, what do I want to change and what stops with me? It's that I'm going to be present and supportive of my kids, and try to give them everything that I can,
How do you do that while still having the parent role and not the friend role?
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting, right? It's interesting because I had to tell my daughter, I'm like, you got to remember that I'm your dad, not your best friend. And she took it a whole different way, right? She's like, oh, remember when you told me you're not my best friend? I'm like, you'll get older and realize what I mean by that. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to support. But there is some boundaries there with that, right? There's going to be some expectations from me, healthy expectations from me, which is one thing that I don't think my parents had. Their expectations look different. Their expectations was like, I need to provide a roof and I need to provide food, right? My expectations for my daughter, I need to be smart enough to help her with her homework, right? I need to be active so I can be active with her. I need to look good. I want her to be proud of me. I need to be able to speak well. I need to be a professional to give her that. So my expectations that I have on myself as a father are way bigger than my expectations that I have for her. I'm like, do good in school, stay out of trouble. Pretty much it.
Well, also the example you said is what she's going to look for in a husband.
No, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So, giving her that, right? Like, what does a healthy relationship look like, right? And everybody has their ups and downs in their relationship, but that's a key one. Like, when she comes over, because me and her mom share custody, and she comes over to my household, like, I want to be that. What does a healthy relationship look like? I always tell her, you're going to fight. It's just about learning how to fight. Do your disagreements look like? There's nothing I can't say just talking that I have to say yelling or whatnot. And so giving her those little examples, right, of what a healthy relationship looks like, what a healthy household, what stability looks like, financial stability. There's just huge, right? And you as a father, I mean, those are heavy things that weigh on us, right? And that we
Yeah.
carry with us. But she expresses herself doing this work when I'm sharing my life with the kids that I work with. It takes a lot of my time and energy, right? And when she was younger, she would tell me, she's like, you spend more time with them than you do with me, right? And I'd let her express that as much as it hurt. And I don't know if it ever really goes away, right? Because just yesterday, I kid you not, picking her up from driver's ed, she told me that she's like, sometimes I feel like I can't tell you a lot of things because you're already stressed out from them. So like you're investing a lot of your time and energy in them that I don't want to take that away from you. And she straight up told me, she's like, sometimes I feel like I don't have a dad, and maybe that's just coming from a place of frustration in that very moment, but she can rightfully so express herself. She's allowed to say that if that's what she feels, even in those 5 minutes, right? Now, I disagree with it to a certain extent because who's paying for everything and who's picking you up and dropping you off? But again, then that's my parents' mentality. Like, well, I'm just paying for everything, right? And so, but I always let her express herself, and I never want to take that away from her. I never want to shut her up because that's all I got growing up, right? I'm like, no, you get to express yourself, and if that's what you feel, even if it's just in 5 minutes, you get to say that to me. That's fine, and we can talk it through, and which we always do. We have a really good relationship. Doing this work, I haven't found the healthy balance of work and home life. I don't know if there is. I'm yet to find it because when I'm doing this work, this is not a 40-hour job.
I think everything comes in seasons.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But we're working with hundreds of kids, individual lives with individual needs, right? And so we're fully trying to invest in their lives each individually. It's tough. Like, when do you have time to, one, invest in yourself, but fully also invest in your kids? So what I try to do is just be fluid. If the weekend does come and for whatever reason I'm not working, completely just invest in my daughters, right, or my partner. And so it's tough. I'm yet to learn if there is a healthy balance, but I know there's a sacrifice you pay in doing this work, right? We're not just passing out food boxes Monday to Friday. I'm not saying there's trying to downplay that, but this goes way beyond that for me and all my staff. I see the way they show up every day, the way they share their lives with the kids, and the kids share their life with them. It's a heavy investment. I just told my team yesterday, I have two gals that are wonderful, just amazing people. My development coordinator and then my program director. And I told them, hey, if you guys decide to have kids and you quit, I won't blame you. Like, because it's tough. There is a price you pay in doing this work, but it comes with the territory. And I say that because I don't think anybody's doing what we're doing to the point of investing so much into these kids that need it the most. I don't. And of course, I'm going to be biased. Now, I'm a product of the organization that I now run. But like, I don't see the same investment from others in the way we're doing it, right? And I think that's what makes us so good in what we do is we show up to the courtroom, not just graduation. We show up to the probation meetings. We take them to the UAs and we're with them when they fail and everything that comes with that. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think those moments are a lot more important than the winnings
I agree.
because there's a lot of people there for you to say good job, but it's a very silent stadium when there's only just you clapping for yourself until you make it.
Absolutely. I love to be with them when they fail. And I mean that in the best way possible, that that's when they need us the most. When you fail that test and now it's a long car ride home, or you're in the classroom and you just don't understand it and you're upset and there's tears in your eyes, like that's when we're going to be with you for sure. Because like you said, it's easy to show up to graduation. It's easy to applaud, but who's going to be there and tell you like, nah, bro, you're good. You're good. It's okay to fail. And this is a safe place to fail. Because I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Is for me growing up, failure was shame, right? You're not good enough. And that was just a way I was raised. I do think it did contribute something good though, right? Some high expectations, some grit, some work harder in me, right? But even as an adult, I find sometimes critique hard to hear because all that ever came with critique was shame and you're not good enough, right? But to show these kids, I'm like, no, bro, you're good. You're fine. We're here. I tell them every day, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here tomorrow morning. We'll be here. You're fine. You get another shot. You'll be okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, your big brother called you on some stuff and you wanted to change it, he might have regretted it later, but it still made you who you are today, and you wanted to prove people wrong. And a lot of people, I'm sure, are betting against some of these kids that they're not going to make it, and you guys are the ones that are saying no, you guys are going to make it.
No, yeah, we're saying no. You're worth fighting for,
Yeah,
and you deserve the opportunity to succeed. And we're going to be here. I've made enemies in the community because I go 100% for my kids. And I'm okay. And if I make enemies because I'm really here for my kids, and they just want to say that, and then this kid, fails or, does something, and then they're like, oh no, we don't mess with that. I'm like, well, I do. That's my kid. I'll show up for these kids. I'll get in a fist fight for these kids. I kid you not, and I'm not making this up. I've stood in front of a gun for my kids, and that's what we are, right? And we are that because that's what they were for me.
So you stood in front of a gun for a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. So got myself in a situation where I go in there. So it was a local bar, and I go in there to get a drink. It's a Sunday. I believe the game was on or something, and I went in there, and I ended up running into some of the guys I used to hang out with, right? So I'm like, oh, what's up, man? And I always acknowledge them. I'm not in their world anymore, but I always acknowledge them if there's still some love there, and shake their hands or whatnot. And we're sitting there, and then I look over, and I see one of my past students walk in. Right now, he's a little older, and they see each other now. I know that this kid is from a rival gang from these guys, and they know each other. And right off the bat, they just start staring at each other, right? So we're sitting there, and I see the look of concern on both the faces. I'm trying to play it off. I'm like, oh, what's up, dude? And I'm thinking if I say what's up to this guy and I let them know, like, hey, this is one of my old students, that these guys will be like, oh, whatever's, That's not what happened. They're sitting there just dogging each other out. I go up to my student, and I'm like, what's up? How are you? And he looks at me. He's like, hey, these guys are going to try to jump me. I'm like, I know. I'm like, get out of here, bro. Get out of here. He's like, all right. So I'm sitting there. I see these guys get on their phone. And I'm like, they're calling people or texting people. They're going to do something. And so I see, the past student, he was with this girl. They slam their drinks and they get up. I'm like, okay, thank God. And I go up to him to say bye. And she's like, okay, what's up, man? I'll see you later, Then I hear this guy go, you guys have a problem? I'm like, oh, shit. So I told this dude to get out of there. And then next thing, he has to prove a point either to his girl or to himself, or to them, like, I'm going to say something. And then they stand up. And they're like, well, what's up? This and that. I, for a fact, know they both have guns. I know for a fact. Nobody's moving these days without a gun, right? They start grabbing their waistline, this and that. I literally stand in between them. I'm like, no, chill out, bro, chill out. He's one of my old students, this and that. And they're grabbing their waistline. So it's not like they pulled it out and they were pointing it, but they're grabbing at their waist, right? And I knew for a fact at least one of them had a gun. Someone might have been pretending to try to bluff, but I know for a fact one of them had a gun. And so they're kind of go back and forth, and I'm standing in between this. And then he finally walks out, talking shit or whatnot, and gets out of there. I'm like, whew, relieved, right? Now when I think back on it, I'm like, damn, I have kids and shit, right? But in that moment, I'm thinking of like, I just don't want no one to get hurt. I want nobody to get put in harm's way. But that's what this work does, right? He was one of my students. These are still individuals that I'm not in their world anymore, but these are still individuals that I know. I think I was standing more in the way for my past student than I was for them, to be quite honest. But I've been in situations like that, not always with guns, but getting in the way of harm. I sometimes feel like if anybody's going to get harmed, I'd want it to be me, right? And I had a lot of these type of conversations with my development coordinator. I've been doing this work going on 14 years now. And it's tough to say that in those years, I lost count at 15 kids passing away. We had 15 kids pass away who have either been current students or who have graduates or who just went through our program briefly, right? And even more who have gotten incarcerated, unfortunately. And it's something you never get used to, especially for the kids who pass away. But again, it comes with the territory, right? And I'd rather be there and be the one that feels something for this kid and know that he was really here than just read it on the paper and be like, oh, there's another one, right? Those are the kids I want to share my time and space with, right? The ones that don't have that huge support system or the ones who are often pushed aside. Those are the kids I want to feel for, right? Even if it's hurt, right? They say that grief is the price you pay for love. And so if that's what comes with this, then I will stand in that grief. I will stand in that and know that this kid was somebody and this kid had dreams and if they were somebody in this world at one point and they meant a lot to me, right? And it does scare me to one day not be in this position and that I do read something and it's not a kid that I can feel something for, right? Whether it is a kid that passed away or whether it's a mugshot, right? That was somebody's kid, somebody's sibling, somebody's loved one, right? And if there's only mom there to feel grief, well, I'll be that other person to feel grief for this kid or this individual because this was somebody's loved one, right? This was somebody special in this world. And like I said, I do have this weird fear of someday not being in this position where I don't get to feel some type of grief, right? It's so amazing to feel proud for these kids when they're successful, but that grief, that's also huge, right? They are important and they do deserve people there to feel that. It's just the price you pay for love.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. I can't even imagine like the amount of maturity that you've had to go through just to be able to put your life on the line with everything you got going on for you and just love these kids. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm and I'll get into it in a little bit, but I'm a product of this organization. I'm a product of people investing in me, right? And I know
so what happened after you got expelled.
So I got expelled, ended up coming back to, I got suspended. I went to Alpha One, right? Which used to be the expulsion school. So I came back to school, tried the school thing out. At that point, now I'm getting in trouble. So now my brother drags me to a nonprofit at the time called OG's Bad. And that nonprofit was ran by Steve Toronto. He was the executive director, right? And so they had an after kind of work crew program where the kids after traditional school would go off into the community and do little side jobs or whatnot and get paid. Now, it was just to keep the kids busy after school, traditional school. So I got introduced to the program and Steve Toronto at that time. Then I just dropped out of high school. And I ended up going to OG's Bad for my GED and my HSC. But it was...
Were you even going to school really at that point in time?
I was, but not doing anything.
Okay.
So that I always my mom would make fun of me because she's like, you're showing up, but you're not doing anything. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm worried about everything else.
And you said you were a really good student then.
So that had stopped probably around 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that stopped earlier
Once
on.
you had moved down here, you kind of stopped?
No, so we were already here. But around 5th grade is when I stopped having interest in school. Right?
Okay.
And I'm just growing older. And so, but yeah, so going back to, I'm involved in OG's Bad and we were hired on through the city to get the baseball fields ready for baseball tournaments and baseball games here locally in Nampa. And I remember it was a Saturday, and we were out. They had the baseball fields out there by Snake River Elementary, and we were getting the fields ready. Now we were running behind. We had a bunch of fields to do, and we show up and we're late. And one of the coaches just starts talking crap to us. Right, and it's a crew of us. It's probably like 4 or 5 of us, and we're all like gang affiliated. And so we're staring at this guy like, well, we'll beat this guy's ass. My brother, who was a supervisor at the time, was like, no, like chill out. So we're sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and I remember like working and starting to feel that shame and that embarrassment that I used to always feel. Right, so I'm like heated. But at the same time, my brother's the supervisor. This is a job; they're paying us, and so I'm sitting there, and my brother calls Steve Toronto again, who was the executive director at that time. And I hear I hear a car just like get into the parking lot. I look over, speeding. I see Steve jump out, and he runs straight up to that coach, gets in his face, and he goes, "Don't you ever talk to my kids like that again. Don't you ever talk to my kids like that again." And that sentence, those words, my kids. He didn't say those kids. He didn't say my workers. He said my kids. And to be quite honest, that's one of the first times I can ever remember someone sticking up for me. And I remember just feeling something that I had never felt before. And I remember telling myself, I'll die for this guy. Like my loyalty to him that day was solidified. Like I will never let this guy down, which is something I carry to this day. But that made the biggest difference for me. So the way he showed up for me is the way that I want to show up for our kids. They're my kids, and nobody's going to fuck with them. And if they do, there's a price you're going to pay, you know. Not to sound all sinister and dark, but no, these are my kids, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you proved that later on in life, standing between two people with guns.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, man, that's how I got involved in the organization that I now run. I ended up getting my GED at 17, and the program gave me employment, helped me find full-time employment, and I was still 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the gang stuff, and a huge milestone.
Why were you 1 foot out?
So, because I was being productive, I was working full time, but then I still was hanging out with the homies. I was still, um, running around. And at this point, it's fist fights. It's being around shootings. It's about being around some real violence, right?
So you were just out because you were busy. It
Yeah.
wasn't like you had nothing going on like when you were in high school then.
Yeah, no, it was just busy with work, but always any free time we did have, we were with the homies trying to hang out.
Gotcha.
And just jumping in, and just it was so weird because back then it's like, yeah, no, like I'm gonna work, like, because my parents taught me that work ethic. Like, I'm gonna work, but I'm still doing this. Like, I'm still doing this. So when I wasn't working, I was still hanging out with the homies and getting into havoc. And at that point, when we're older, now it's real. I mean, bullets are flying, people are getting stabbed, all that stuff.
Did you ever have to deal with anything like that close to you? Anybody that you had to like take to the hospital or anything
Yeah,
like that?
no, absolutely. I seen my buddy's guts, pretty much coming out of his stomach because he got stabbed. I didn't take him to the hospital, but the little homie took him to the hospital. I used to live off East Florida Avenue. Used to be Mercy Medical Center, so it's just a couple blocks down. I remember running to the hospital when they told me he got stabbed, and getting in there, and I'm all worried. I don't know where he's at, and I jump in there. I'm like, hey, and some lady's like, what's going on? She sees I'm all frantic, and I'm like, hey, my homie just got stabbed. Is he okay? She's like, okay, sit down. And I was like, no, is my homie okay? Did he get in here? He's like, yeah, sit down. I'm like, but is he okay? And she tells me, sit down. No, she goes, I don't care if it's your homie. She said it like that because I was saying homie, right? And then she's like, you need to sit down. I'm calling the police. But again, that shame, that embarrassment, she mocked me, right? So I just start laying into her, F you, you F this, anything you could think of, this and that, causing the biggest scene in there. She's like, I'm going to call the cops. I said, call the cops. I don't care. Then two of the goofiest securities come on over to try to kick me out. And they're just some goofballs, right? And so I'm mocking them. What are you guys going to do? And I could tell they're scared. And they're pushing me out or whatever. I get out. I see the cops at the light coming in too. And I see the cops. And of course I get scared. And then I take off running or whatnot. But yeah, he was, his guts were hanging out. Later when I ran into Napa Police Department, they're like, oh, your friend's the one that got stabbed. This and that. He's like, his guts were hanging out, and so that was scary. He got stapled up. He was out of it, lost like 40, 50 pounds from it. He was in pretty bad shape, but he survived.
Do you feel like you ever got desensitized to those kind of things?
No, and that's the truth, because there was multiple situations that happened that I felt feared. I felt scared. And so I knew, and that was a big eye opener, because I'm like, no matter how many times like bullets are flying or something like that happens, like I feel scared. Like no matter how much I want to say like I don't want to live, or I don't want to be here, or I'm such a gangster that I don't care if I go to prison or die. That situations like that would happen, and I would feel scared. I'd be like, oh shit, and like I would try to get out of the situation, And so instinctively I would try to survive somehow, right? So I don't think I ever got desensitized from those type of situations.
Yeah, that's I can't even imagine like some of those. I've seen some stuff in prison, but
Right.
I can't even imagine it being on the street and it being something that that's close. I mean, I've seen people that I don't know and I have to respond to those things, but to have that be your brother or just someone that you are acquainted with, like, and to know that that's their life on the line, that's got to be like a whole different level of just scared and realizing that could have been you. And did you ever have anything close that you got stabbed or anything like that?
No, shot at.
Jeez.
Shot at for sure, and that's here in Nampa. Handful of times as well, and that's one thing I think of, right? Like people have to go like overseas, go to war to get shot at, or we have police officers here, who protect us, who also get in the line of fire. But I wonder like who gets it more, because I can name off homie after homie who's been shot at or in a shootout, and I myself have been, shot at, and so that's happening here in our home. It's happening in Canyon County. It's scary. I've known, I've had homies pass away. I've had homies who are locked up doing life for killing people, and so it's real out here. I think one of the things we cannot do is try to ignore it or say that it's not what it is, and it's real. I mean, we just see it. We just saw it last week. You know, kids in the paper for killing someone. You know, we see it all the time. It's here. So my question to you would be, and I don't know how much your world. I mean, I know you saw it and working at the prison, but do you feel like you ever have been around like any gang activity or gang violence? Have you seen it? Have you come across it?
Oh yeah,
out here.
Oh, out here.
Out here.
No.
Right. Because I feel like I'm around it nonstop, and I don't know if I just know what I'm looking at, or what. But like in my world, I'm like, as soon as I step out the door and drive around, like it's everywhere. Like I see the individuals, I see this, I know where the guys live at, and it's because I come from that world, obviously. But I feel like it's just everywhere, and maybe I'm just so hyper vigilant and that I'm just looking at all these things and taking it in. But it's here. You know,
Yeah.
and I think we need to address it and call it what it is, and it's definitely, you know, harming the community.
The closest thing that I can recognize is like the prison tattoos or the affiliation numbers or it's mainly just tattoos that I can recognize. But to be able to drive down the street or anywhere in like Caldwell, Nampa, anywhere like that, and to know that this is like a gang area, I would be oblivious, honestly.
Right. And again, it's because I'm surrounded by it every day, right? I have kids who are in my class who are on probation or whose lives have been impacted by gangs. So I'm hearing it all the time. I'm seeing it. So I know where I'm at. I know who's who. And so it's a lot of that, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I feel like, and again, maybe it's just because it's my world that I feel like it's in the paper, it's in the news, it's on social media. I just hear it and see it over and over again, and it's happening.
Yeah, I'm sure once you become aware of something, it's kind of like when you start looking for a car, you start seeing it everywhere, right?
That's true.
Like, so if you're not looking for that thing, then you probably won't be able to find it. Because I always wondered too, like when people get out of prison and they're like, it's so easy to go find drugs, and I'm like, well, I've just never even had anybody like, you know, the DARE class where they were always like, you're gonna be offered drugs all the time, and I'm like, I've never been offered free drugs.
Right, not free.
Yeah, because that's what they told you in DARE, like people are gonna offer you free drugs, and I'm like, I have never been offered free drugs.
Right. No, for sure. No, it's everywhere, man. It's everywhere. It's so easy to get a gun. It's so easy to get drugs. It's easy for sure.
So when was it after you had graduated that things had started to really progress for you, in the bad way?
So it was from 16 to about, I would say from 16 to 23 years old is when I was really, really heavy in it. Now, what happened at 19 is the biggest milestone in my life. So at 19, I had met an individual who I met at a party. It was kind of a house party. And I heard that this individual was affiliated as well. And he was kind of hanging around. And I looked at him and I remember thinking, I'm like, are you sure? Because this fool kind of looks goofy, you know? But I'm like, oh, what's up, dude? He was a nice guy. We started talking, and he told me he was working laying carpet. And I remember like, hey, are you guys hiring? Like, I'm looking for another job, something full time. He's like, I'll let you know. I'll talk to my boss. I was like, okay. And then he tells me, he's like, I heard you might have some guns for sale. And I said, yeah, I actually do. I have a 380. And he's like, all right. He's like, are you selling it? I'm like, not really, but I will. You know. Now this 380, what had happened with it is one time I had it in my waist, and I took off running, and that it fell and it hit the ground, and then the firing pin jammed. Right, so it wasn't working, but I could like rig it to where it would shoot one bullet. But after that, it would jam right away, right? And I told him, I'm like, I have this gun, but the firing pin is messed up. He's like, I don't care, man. It's cool. I'll hit you up. Okay, whatever. We exchange numbers. A week later, he hits me up. I get a text message, and it says, hey, I got some work. I said, all right. He's like, 6,000 each. I'm like, oh, okay. And I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, like a side job, like laying carpet or something, because we were just talking about work. And he's like, yeah, man, oh, cool. We'll talk about it. I was like, all right. He's like, you got that gun for sale. Cool. So he comes over that day. I sold the gun to him. I believe I sold it. It was like $120, $130. Gave him the gun, gave him a box of bullets. After I give him the gun, I remember him saying like, hey, let's go put in some work. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, let's go rob like a gas station. We'll rob a pawn shop. We'll do something. I was like, hell no, bro. I'm not going to do that. I was like, you want to go like find some rivals, some opposition? I'm about that, but I'm not going to go do all that. So he starts talking crap to me. And I start getting mad. Now I'm like thinking, I'm like, damn, I just sold him this gun. I know only fires one bullet, but he has the gun and I don't. So, but I'm still talking crap, you know. And he's like, all right, whatever, bro, whatever. I'll text you later, this and that. He puts the gun, you know, in his waist, and he gets in the car. Now I remember when he showed up, something that caught my attention right away. He had to be high off meth, but one thing that caught my attention was, I hear people talk about when they meet an individual, how their eyes are just blacked out. And I remember his pupils might have just been, because I remember that stood out to me. I was looking at him in the eyes, and I'm like, damn, what's up with this dude? But he was definitely high off meth, right? And so he takes off. Not even 5 minutes later, he texts me again. He's like, come on, man. He told me, let your nuts hang. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And I was like, hell no, bro. And I was like, bro, you could come back and we could talk about this. Like, we could do that, and like basically calling him on to like, let's get in a fight or whatnot. And he's like, oh, whatever. I'll text you tomorrow. At this point, I was like, I don't want nothing to do with this fool. He's an idiot. Next day, man, wake up in the morning, get up to go to work. I go on social media and I see his face blasted everywhere. It says suspected bank robbery, right? And it was him. And they were looking for him, right? So this fool went and robbed a bank. Now, I find out all the details later on, a little bit later on. But these are the details. So this dude goes and robs a bank. It was the end of January. He robs the bank on a day where the local schools had a snow day. He goes in there. It sounds like he never pulled out the gun, but he went in there, demanded money, got $8,000, and then took off. Again, it's a snow day. The roads. This fool takes off doing like 15 miles per hour. Cops find him right away. He tries to speed off. He crashes. I can't remember if it was into a car or into a pole, but he crashes. He takes off running. Now, when they get to the car, they see the gun, his wallet, and the cell phone. The only thing he took with him was, of course, the bag of money. So he takes off running. Now, the cops get there and they see just footprints in the snow. So the cops just follow the footprints. They see these footprints go into a house. Now, the cops think he's just gone, that it's his house or someone's house that he knows, and he's in there, barricading himself. So they surround the house. Hours later, they go in, no one's in there. Well, this dude ended up, I believe it was just a random house with a door open. He ran in the front and just ran out the back. And when the cops got in, he wasn't there. So this dude gets away, right? Now, I'm laughing when this happens because I'm like, that's the idiot I sold the gun to. And I tell my mom, I'm telling everybody joking around. I remember my mom was like, you're going to get in trouble. And I'm like, no, I didn't even do anything. Like, I just sold him the gun. But she's like, you're going to get, I'm like, there's nothing they can do. Like, not taking it too serious. Man, like a day later, 2 days later, I started getting text messages from weird numbers. Like, hey, dude, I need a ride. Come pick me up. I'm dressed up as a girl. I'm stayed up in a motel. I'm trying to hide out. And I'm like, hell nah. I am not responding to any of this. I'm like, heck no. So that goes on. He keeps trying to I start getting like random calls from weird numbers, and I'm not responding. I'm like, hell no. A week passes by. It's Friday, and I'm at work, and I get a call. So I pick up, and it's a call from the Ada County Jail, and it's him, right? And he says his name. I accept it. I'm like, what's up? This dude's like, dude, it was easy, bro. Don't worry, bro. I'll be all right. Put some money on my books. Everything will be cool, homie. Like, just hold it down. I'll hold it down in there. I'm gonna get tatted up this time when I'm in there because he had been in prison before. And I'm just quiet because I'm like, what the fuck are you calling me for? And why are you acting all nonchalant? And I'm like, all right, bro. He's like, hey, I'll be easy, bro. I'll be out no time. I'm like, all right, bro, cool. And I just hang up. Strange. Dude's gone. Now this becomes a funny story I can tell at barbecue, right? I'm like, it's whatever's. That night we go to the homie's house. I'm with my girlfriend. We're chilling, we're drinking, and it's getting a little late. The next morning, with the gun that I got from that gun, I was going to take my girl to get her nails done. And so she's like, hey, I'm going to go home, fall asleep. I'll pick you up in the morning. We'll get my nails done. I was like, all right, cool. So I get in the car with her. So she jumps in the driver's seat. I get in the passenger. But I just lean over, give her a hug, kiss. She takes off. I walk back into the house. It has to be 30 seconds later. My phone starts ringing. I pick it up. It's her. I'm like, what's up, babe? And I hear her just screaming. And I'm like, what's going on? I hear people yelling in the background. I said, what's going on? And then the phone hangs up. And so I get freaked out. And I'm like, well, she has to be just down the road. She just took off. So I run out the house. And when I'm running out, I'm like, hey, my girl's in trouble. My girl's in trouble. And I start running down the street. And I start running towards her house, the route I know she probably took. I'm running down the street. And I'm thinking, I'm like, shoot. She got in a car accident, or some of the people, some rivals saw her car, which I used to always be in and be stupid in, and shot at it, ran her off the road or something. She's in trouble. She's in danger. I'm running down Lone Star, headed towards Midland here in Nampa, and my cars got in the car, and they come in, they pick me up. They're like, get in. As soon as we turn to the left on Midland, there's a church there, and I just see her car off to the side, surrounded by cop cars. But her car's off to the side, super weird, right? It's a weird angle. So I'm like, oh shit, she got in a wreck. So I jump out of the car and I start running towards the police officers. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm just like, I'm gonna put my hands up just in case. So I run up with my hands up and I'm like, hey, that's my girlfriend. Is she okay? Is she okay? As I got closer, I saw these dudes were fully suited, rifles, and that's when I'm like, oh shit. And they turn around, they see me, and they just start telling me, get the fuck on the ground. Get the fuck on the ground. And I'm in shock because I know I have like lights on me. Everybody's turning around. I hear my homie take off in the car. Cops chase them. I'm sitting there and I just get taken down. I was in shock. I didn't know how to react. I don't know if I even could. I was just frozen. They knock me to the ground. They start handcuffing me. And I'm like, what's going on? And then one of the police officers says, you're going to fucking jail. That's what's going on. Now, a detective, he was dressed like nice. So he found out he was a detective. He's like, no, you're okay. You're okay. We just need to talk to you. And I'm okay. What's going on? So they lift me up. They're like, hey, where's so-and-so? And they mentioned that individual's name. And I act stupid at first. I'm like, who? What? Like, where's so-and-so? And then I'm like, he's in jail. He's in jail. I'm like, yeah, he's in Ada County. And they're kind of looking at each other. He walks away. I hear him make a phone call. Hey, do you have a gentleman by the name of so-and-so? Okay. Hangs up, comes back. He's like, yeah, he's in jail. And so they didn't even know he was in jail somehow. Come to find out, they were pinging my phone and they were following me. Because again, remember when he got in a crash, his phone was in there, his wallet, and the gun. So they must have went through the text messages and then saw the interaction, and then they start pinging my phone. So that's how they found me, is that they were pinging. They saw my girlfriend's car take off thinking I was with her, right? And then they pursued her and pulled her over, but I wasn't in the car.
Yeah, I was wondering how they figured out that you sold the gun to him, but yeah they
through the
went
text
through
messages.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because that's something they pulled out. So they're like, we just need to talk to you, man. You want to come to the station and talk to us? If not, we're going to charge you with obstructing. So I'm like, what? Obstructing? I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, no, I'll talk to you. I'm thinking again, I didn't do anything. I'm like, no, the dude's locked up. Like, So I was thinking they were trying to find me to find him. They take me to the station and we're sitting there and I'm just acting like a jackass the whole time. I'm trying to play it off, thinking I'm smarter than them. They're asking me questions. I'm laughing. Next thing you know, they pull out a picture of the gun. Do you recognize this gun? I'm like, no, I don't know what that is. They pull out the text messages. Now, on these text messages, the ones they pull out, it says, I have a job for $6,000. And me saying, okay, cool, bro. So now these text messages look like something else. And I'm like, I start doing math in my head. I start like putting the pieces together. I'm like, wait a minute. What's going on here? After, I don't know, it felt like 4 or 5 hours. Finally, what I say is, okay, yeah, I sold him the gun, but I didn't know what he was going to do with it. They're like, okay, well, is this the gun? I'm like, yeah, it's the gun. Okay, well, how much did you sell it for? It says right here on these text messages. It's like, well, yeah, no, that's how much I sold it for. Okay, cool. All right, we're going to need you to stand up, put your hands behind your back, and you're going to jail tonight. I was like, all right. I'm going to jail for selling a gun. Probably reported stolen, something. I'm like, what am I getting charged with? And they said, criminal conspiracy. I had no idea what that was. I was like, all right. So they, not knowing the degree of what it was, right? They handcuff me and they take me. Now that sentence, yeah, I sold him the gun, but I didn't know what he was going to do with it. Remember that sentence. They take me to jail, booked me, mugshot, put me in a holding cell, and then my journey being locked up began. Now, I went to Canyon County, and then I got transferred over to Ada County because the crime took place in Meridian, so it was Ada County. And I didn't know how serious it was until I had court over in Ada County, and that's when they set my bail, and it was $500,000 bail, right? And they told me it was a felony. And one of the things I remember before I had that court, my cellmates were like, hey, do you want to learn how to play spades? And I was like, no, bro. Like, I'm not going to be here long, so I'm not even trying to mess with any of that. He's like, all right. I'll go to court, find out how serious it is. They say the life carries, I think it was, the charge carries 5 to life. I get back, and I'm like, oh, shit, no, I'm in trouble. And I remember they gave me like a sack lunch. I go back to my cell, and I'm sitting there, and like I took a bite of the sandwich, but I couldn't even chew it. I was so in shock. I'm like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Because I always knew like being locked up was a part of this life that I was living at the time. I didn't know it was going to be straight up 5 to life, right? So I'm like, shit, this just got real.
Was this your first time ever being locked up? Like overnight jail or anything?
No, well, I had gotten locked up on my 18th birthday. I had just turned 18. and we ended up getting a huge fight, right? And the cops came, arrested people. I remember somebody got stabbed, and I ended up getting a minor in consumption ticket. So they took me to jail. I was 18 for 2 hours, and so everybody was like, "Happy birthday" and whatnot. But that had been only just an overnight, and then I got a book release. Just got out the next morning. It was nothing crazy. So that had been the only time. I was on juvenile probation, but never got locked up. Never went to detention. I got at 15. I got it was like concealed weapon charge. Had a knife on me or something. So this is like the first real like locked up experience, right? So yeah, my journey. There we go. I realized how serious it is. I remember contacting my lawyer. Probably at this point, I'm like 2-3 months in, and I remember it was a funny phone call. He's like, yeah, man, definitely gonna go out there. You know, you're gonna go do some time. And they're offering a 5+10, so a total of 15 years. They're not budging. Like they want you out there for sure for a 5+10, and he's like, at least you're being a man about it, you know. So I'm like, oh yeah, no, cool, yeah, and I'm just like acting like whatever. As I get off the phone, I'm like, at least I'm being a man about it, bro. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I couldn't even take a shit for a week, bro, because I was like, this is it.
When you're a part of that life and that culture, do they tell you that if you go to jail for the gang or whatever, that they'll take care of you on the inside, so you don't need to be afraid of anything if you do get caught?
It's funny because you get their version of things, right? So there's like a little system, and I can't speak too much on the prison stuff because I never made it out there, right? But there's like, when you get here, this is what you have to do, right? So there's like an expectation. Like, you get here and everybody knows it. If you're affiliated with the gang I was affiliated with, like, there's a certain way. As soon as you touch down over there, you have to do something to make sure you get put up in max, that you get segregated. There's a certain thing, like there's a certain way you have to go about it, right? So there's expectations, which these get told to you as a teenager. Like, once you make it out there, this is what you have to do or whatnot.
Yeah, like get your letters, earn your letters, all that, get them filled in, all that good stuff.
Right. And so what it was is that I was young. I was 19 years old. I knew if I went to prison, because they did a 5+10, total 15, 5 fixed. I have to do 5 if I would do good programming.
10 indeterminate.
Yeah, exactly. But I know as a young gang member, if I go out there, I'm going to do 15. There's expectations on me because I'm young and whom I'm affiliated with, that I'm going to do 15. You go out there and you have to ask them if you can try to parole out before you try to parole out. It's that, and they'll tell you yes or no. So that's where I was at that point. I'm like, I'm done. Like 15, I'm doing 15 years, right? So shit got real. Shit got real for sure. We started going through the court process. I was probably like 6 months in. I called my attorney. Now, the other co-defendant, this was his third felony, right? So he was trying to fight it. I get in contact with my lawyer, and he's like, hey, good news. They say he's taking it to trial, but if you're willing to testify against him, we could potentially let you out at your next court on felony probation. Bro, I'm not going to lie. That even though, like, in that life, I knew you don't do that. Like, this is the life you chose, and this is what you do. You just take it on the chin, right? I was like, I don't know. And he's like, you don't know. I was like, don't say nothing. Think about it. Call me tomorrow. I was like, all right. So I did. I thought about it. I remember sitting there. I'm like, bro, I can get out. Like, you go from 15 years to hearing like you could potentially get out if you testify in court against this guy. I call him the next day. I'm like, I can't do it. And he literally tells me, suit yourself, and hangs up. I'm paying this guy to try to get me out. And, so he's like, oh, all right, suit yourself. So then I'm like, no, let's go. Let's do it. I can't do that, right? I can't do that. I can't take it to that degree. I still was living in those, bro, you ask me now, shit, don't do anything around me. I'm going to tell. You know what I'm saying? Like, different values, right? This is my world now. It's not theirs. Back then, I was so stuck in that world, trying to live up to their standards and their expectations and their values.
And this is 6 months into jail at this point, right?
6 months.
So what was that time like for you while you were in jail? Because you were a fighter. You were just, I'm sure that you had to have some confrontation in that time.
Yeah, there was confrontation, but I knew how to hold it down. Like, being out here, I was a tough guy. So I went in there, but I knew I just mind my own business. Don't get into this. Don't get into the drama. Try not to politic in there. So I was, just keeping my head up and chin up. And if anything did come my way, I would handle it if I had to.
Don't run up any debts, anything like
exactly.
that. Right?
I didn't gamble. I saw all that drama happen around gambling, happen around the store, commissary store, happen. And I was like, I want no part of that. Like, I'm not going to do any of that. Another thing was that out in Ada County, I was like the only, with the gang I was affiliated with, I was like the only one over there. And it was a lot of the other guys, right? So my cellies were like white dudes, right? And this is so jail was just being locked up was just a learning experience. So I was locked up with these white dudes. It's the first time I saw them. Like, wait, there's these white dudes out here with like racial tattoos or whatnot, which is something I didn't see in Canyon County. But now I'm out there. My cellie's one of them. He has this big old swastika and lightning bolts in this. The coolest dude ever. And so I befriend this guy. I'm eating lunch with this dude, sitting down, and this is still county, so this isn't prison politics, right? So I'm like sitting down, eating lunch with this dude, and the dudes I have to worry about isn't him with the swastika. It's the dudes that look just like me, just from a different affiliation. It's literally the guy that looks just like me. I'm sure his family has gone through the same thing my family has gone through. Same style of tattoos, just different affiliations. So here I am with this dude that people would, he's hateful, he's racist, chatting with him, having lunch. He's got my back. He's a big old dude. They're deep in there. I'm hanging out with them, and I'm worried about the guys that look just like me, right? Speaking with this dude, getting to know his life story, he's like, bro, I don't hate anybody. He's like, I went to prison at 17. I did 10 years. I had to do this. I don't hate anybody. And that was a good perspective for me to see, of the things that people have to do to survive. Sometimes it doesn't align with what you want to do, but you have to do it to survive, right? And so this dude's covered in tattoos, one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
So it sounds like your time wasn't too bad then in Ada County as far as like not having to put in work and things like that. Obviously, you were probably going through things with like your family, your girlfriend, things like that, right? So that are going to be hard and loneliness. But as far as like putting in work and things like that, you were okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was fine in that aspect. I was fine. It was the girlfriend piece. It was the family piece.
Did you have support from your family and girlfriend while you were in there?
So I did have support from my girlfriend for the first probably 2-3 months, and then she dipped. I'm sure that story is gets told over and over from everybody. So she dipped, and then my family came to visit me once, but I just couldn't do it. They came. My mom came to visit me, and my sister with my brother, and I just couldn't. I was like, I can't do it. I told them, don't come back. Like, don't come back. I can't do that. It was just too heartbreaking, too emotional for me. Seeing my little sister, because me and her were best friends growing up, and then seeing her, and I'm just like, seeing them, on the other side of that glass, I'm like, I can't do this. So I told him, I feel like it's more damaging for me than it is like support. So I would call on the phone and have conversations, but I didn't want to see them. The girlfriend thing, I mean, it was visits every week, letters every day, money every week, for about 3 months. And then she just stopped, right? I'd call and like some dude picks up, and I'm sitting there like, F you, this and that, who are you? I'd call back, then she would pick up like, I'm sorry, baby, this and that. Who was that cousin? Hoping it was a cousin or something, but bro, it was true heartbreak. I remember like visiting time would come, and she had already stopped visiting me for like a month, and I would stand by the door ready, hoping they would call a name to visit, right? Just I don't know why I would do that to myself. I would just stand there knowing that they're not going to call my name, but I'd get ready, and I'm like, just in case. And I did that for a couple months, bro. I would stand by the door hoping they'd call my name, and they never did, and finally I was like, no, this is what it is. It taught me a lot about relationships. We were kids, bro. I was at that point, I was really hateful for her. We were 19. We were kids, bro. We were trying to figure this out. She doesn't deserve, just because I made a decision, she doesn't have to pay the price for that.
There's probably a lot of growth in that, going through that as a lonely chapter and having to really do a lot of self-reflection.
Yeah. It taught me that I can take care of myself, right? Being a 19-year-old, legally I'm 19 years old and considered an adult, but I'm in there with 50, 60-year-olds. As weird as it sounds, like the group showers, like being in there with other dudes, just butt ass naked, and it's just it's like it brought like a type of masculinity that I never had before. Of like, oh yeah, we're just men in here. We're just a bunch of men that are going through something similar, and it was weird, like a weird like I don't know, just being on the same page as everyone, right? Because again, I'm in county, so I'm not like doing the gang politics in there. It was such a learning experience for me that I could take care of myself, and that at the end of the day, bro, sometimes you just got yourself and your thoughts, right? It was the first time ever that like the outside chaos could be on pause, and I could really just think for myself, right? And I was running just scenarios through my head. Now, one of the scenarios I was running through my head was that sentence. Yeah, I sold him the gun, but I didn't know what he was going to do with it. Because I know whether I get out or do go to prison, that fucking sentence is going to bite me in the ass. Because what that is called is dry snitching in that world. Even though I didn't even know this dude, that's dry snitching. Like, as a gang member, one of their codes is like, you don't say nothing. If you get jammed up, you go in there, you ask for a lawyer, and you don't say nothing. That's oversharing, right? Even though I didn't specifically like say names, show up to the courtroom, testify, point fingers, any of that little sentence there would be considered a dry snitch, right? So I knew that was going to come around to bite me in the ass. So when I was in there, I was like, how am I going to take care of this if I do go out to prison or if I do get out? Like, what are the next steps for me to navigate through that, right? Because I knew it was going to come up eventually. But I would run all sorts of scenarios in my head.
And one thing I think we missed from last time was that you said you never actually got jumped in. You were just affiliated.
So when I was younger, I got jumped into a little neighborhood gang, which was just a bunch of little knuckleheads. But as I got affiliated with that gang, I never got jumped into that gang, right? I got asked twice, maybe even 3 times. I always said no. And I don't know if that was just like this ego thing in me of like, I don't answer to nobody, even though I was answering to them. But I was like, I never got jumped in. So I was just affiliated with them. But even affiliated, you go out there, man, and it's game over, you know, even if you're affiliated with them. But yes, correct. I wasn't jumped into the gang I was affiliated with. When I was younger, again, that little knucklehead, you know, we were little kids saying we're a gang and we were beating each other up. That was that. But at this point, no, not jumped into that gang.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So was that playing in your mind then too, that like you were going to have to do that if you went to prison, and you're just starting to accept that since you're not going to testify on your co-defendant, you're going to get the full term? Whereas what was going through your head on all that then?
Yeah, just bracing myself, preparing myself. Like, who's out there? You know, thinking about the homies that were out there. Okay, well, I need to befriend this person. I need to do this. This is what am I going to say? Well, what if they ask me this? This is what I'm going to say. Well, this and that. Like, well, if I run into that guy out there, my co-defendant, I'll just beat his ass so that they see that I'm like the tougher dude. You know, so I'm running all these scenarios through my head, just bracing myself, really bracing myself. At that point, I was bracing myself for going to the prison. I wasn't bracing myself for getting out quite yet, right? So what happens is I meet with the pre-sentence investigator. Now, this person comes, interviews you. She jumps into your life and starts doing research on your past employers and friends, and sees what kind of person you were on the outs, and she gives the judge a recommendation on how you should be sentenced, right? So I walk into the visiting room. I see this lady sitting there, and I sit down, and she's like, she looks at me, and she gets kind of this weird look on her face, and she says, "What are you doing here?" And so I start going into my spiel. Well, I ended up selling a gun. He robbed a bank. She's like, no. How old are you? And she's like looking at her paperwork. I'm like, I'm 19. She's like, you're a baby. What are you doing here? And like the look on her face was like concern. And I remember feeling for the first time in a very long time that somebody viewed me as like somebody's kid, a human, and some sort of compassion there, right? And I just started crying, right? We have this hour interview. She's writing notes. You know, I go back to my cell. And I'm just very emotional, thinking, you know, I'm going to prison. Court comes up, and I believe this was supposed to be my pre-sentence. I can't remember, but court comes up, and I remember knowing that I was going to be able to take a look at the recommendation. I remember it's the court where I get to take a peek at what she says. So I go to court. My lawyer gives me the recommendation. I'm flipping through it. It's all these notes and everything, and I go to the very back page, and the recommendation said for me to get a year. So I was looking at a 5+10, and I remember they dropped it. They're like, okay, take a plea for a 3+7, and they wouldn't budge from a 3+7. My lawyer was like, we're gonna try to get a writer. We're trying to get a writer, which is that program, right? I think it's like 6 to a year programming or whatnot. And so like best case scenario, like we win the lottery, I'm getting a writer, but pretty set I'm gonna get a 3+7. And I just saw that like a year recommendation a year, and it stated why, right? I had a base of education. I had work experience, and I had all these letters. So I had a strong support system from all the mentors from Breaking Chains Academy, which was OG's Bad back then. They sent a bunch of letters to the judge, and she went and interviewed people at OG's Bad, the mentors, and they had all these good recommendations or support letters for me. And I'm sitting there, bro, and I'm just like, finally, like a little light at the end of the tunnel, right? The smallest light. It was a little flicker of light, but it was something. It was hope, right? And I'm like, oh, my whole attitude changed. I swear, I skipped back to the fucking cell, bro. Like, there was hope. That's what hope does. Even though it's just this little light at the end of the tunnel, like that's what that does, right? When I felt hopeless and then they gave me that, I was like, oh shit, I'm going to get out. They pushed out my next court date further out. I didn't even care because I'm like, it's good stuff. Good stuff is coming. I go to court. I stood in front of the judge. She looked at me. She stated, because you have a base of education, work experience, and a strong support system, I do believe you can become a productive member of this community. Boom, gave me a year. 10 years of supervision. At that point, I had been in 6-7 months. So I'm chilling, bro. My whole attitude changed. I started signing up for all these classes in there. I started doing whatever Bible study that came, I was doing Bible study. And I remember I started reading the Bible. And one of the things I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, when I get out, like God, when I get out, one of the first place I'm going to go is church. I'm going to go to church. Okay. That's going to be my thank you. Finally, the day came. I got out. My brother picks me up, my mom, and my brother's like, "Where do you want to go eat? I'll take you anywhere you want. Fanciest restaurant you want, I'll take you." And I was like, "Bro, I just want some Pizza Hut and I want a Gatorade." He's like, "No, no, no, I'll take you anywhere." I'm like, "No, seriously, bro, just order a stuffed crust pepperoni pizza and get me a blue Gatorade, homie, and I'm chilling." And he's like, "All right." So we're coming back into town, and I'm like, "Go to OG's Bad, go there, go there." We do stop there. I walk in. I'm wearing the clothes I got locked up in. So a year later, it's all crusty, it stinks, it's nasty. I walk in, I see Steve Toronto, his wife, all the mentors. I run up and just fucking hug them, and I'm telling them thank you. A part I left out was when I was standing in the courtroom getting sentenced. I looked back to see who was there, and I saw Steve standing there, right? And it just reminded me of when he showed up to those baseball fields and he stood up for us. And I look back, and he's in that courtroom, right? And he's standing up for me there, with letters and his support, his presence. And so I'm like, thank you so much for showing up. And he's got some watery eyes, and we're hugging him, and then I went home, right? I remember after that feeling guilty because I was like, shit, I made God a promise that I was going to go to church as soon as I got out, and it ended up going to Breaking Chains. So it was something that I wrestled for a while until I got a little older, and I realized that Breaking Chains, OG's Bad, was my church, right? It was hope. I knew that's where I was going to find hope. And sure enough, they helped me start getting back on my feet. They helped me get employment. They helped me get into CWI. They were such a great support system. And I felt myself changing at that point, of I got a second shot. And so it was just a beautiful thing to have somewhere to go, right? Immediately after going through something like that, again, just to find my hope and to find the people who were going to be there to support me. It was beautiful.
How did Steve get into this whole thing?
So if I remember correctly, Steve was super successful. I think he was doing insurance or something, but he started doing a youth group at his church with at-risk youth, right? He started falling in love with that. And he's like, this is what I want to do. And if I remember correctly, at one point he became the director of the Boys and Girls Club. Now, Steve, what he wanted to do was target the highest risk kids, highest need kids. And the Boys and Girls Club is that. They target risk, kids who are at risk. But Steve was thinking like gang members, thinking like foster care, kids on probation, who are the highest risk, at the highest level. And so we started paying attention to that. And then Steve stepped away from the Boys and Girls Club and started his nonprofit. Yeah. And so we were at the Racket Club in front of West Middle School at one point. Then we moved into a small church on the north side of Napa. And then we moved into a big brick building, which is the Boise Rescue Mission. They own it now, right there off 16th Avenue. We were in there. And then Steve retired in 2016. And we kept the mission going, rebranded, became Breaking Chains Academy. I just saw Steve at graduation this past Friday. I didn't know he was going to be there. But it was just beautiful to see him and his wife showing up for the mission that he started. I asked him one day, I said, why did you start this? And he said, I wanted to create a place where kids could be productive, where they could run, where they could laugh, where they could smile, and they could be themselves and didn't have to worry about all that outside stuff. And so I try to stay true to that vision and to that mission till this day to create that space for them.
You had to make that guy so proud.
I hope so.
To see you coming from
yeah,
a student to now the executive director
Yep.
and helping other students, like a full circle moment.
for sure. And I can't think of my life without him, father figure, mentor, everything. I cannot picture my life without him. He made the biggest difference in my life. He's the reason that I'm where I'm at, why my daughter's in cheer, why I bought my home, which I never thought I was going to be a homeowner. I bought a home 2 years ago. I contributed to him, right? What came with him was his love, his support. Whether I was in the courtroom or at graduation, that's what got me here today. And when he hired me on, so he hired me on as staff at Breaking Chains when I was 24 years old. This is 2013. I was working at a warehouse making minimum wage, packaging steer manure, chicken manure for fertilizer reasons. And I remember I came in.
And you were at 24 there?
I was 24 years old.
And you got out of jail at what?
1920, because I got locked up in the beginning of 19 and got out at the end, so 20.
What was that 3 years like in between?
Just working.
Were you still 1 foot in, 1 foot out?
It was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but more out, right? I just couldn't completely throw that last leg over that little fence there. I was changing. I was definitely changing. I had a new mindset, but I still, I got to a point where I was like, well, I'm not going to wear the colors, but if somebody asks me what I am, I'm going to say it. So I got to that. And then at one point I'm like, well, I'm not going to say it, but if somebody hits me up, I'm going to be about it. So I was still doing that, trying to navigate all through that. During that time when I got out, I was introduced to a kid I had met before I got locked up, and we'll call him Little Guy. Now, little guy lived on the same street as I did, and both of his parents had gone to prison, and his siblings, his brother and older sister, had gone to prison. So we just took him in, and he was like staying at relatives, grandmas, uncles, aunts, cousins. But we pretty much took him in. He was
Like your family took him in.
Yeah, he would
as
stay
a
at the
kid?
house. We feed him. We'd go out paintballing. We take him out skateboarding. He was like 12 years old at this time, right? And so little did I know, I was already kind of being a mentor before even being hired on to the organization. So we were just there for him, just really mentoring him or whatnot. And then finally, his I think one of his parents got out of prison, and he was with us for a good amount of years, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. And then he finally went back to mom and dad, and that did a lot for me to have a little guy and at that point I had no kids, but I saw this kid, and I was like, I don't want him to do that. His family was really involved in that lifestyle, though.
So you were already leading him away from, even though you were doing it, you were telling him, man, you don't want a part of this
yeah,
life.
yeah. But when your whole family is involved in it, like,
Right.
it's gonna yank on him.
It's all
right?
you know.
Yeah. So as soon as I can't remember if it was his older sibling or his parent who got out, he got right back into that environment, and then I started hearing that he started being around it again.
Probably
right?
just want to make him proud or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you long for your mom and dad,
Right. Their approval.
Exactly. And so I heard that he started kind of hanging around, and I would see him. I would see him around, and he'd be with those guys and whatnot. But then I started working at the organization as a mentor and a tutor, and that changed my life. Seeing these kids who are often again pushed aside, overlooked, or demonized, come into a classroom and sit there, and it was class was an hour back in those days, and it'd be chaos for 55 minutes. But for 5 minutes, you see these kids quiet, just zoomed in on their studies, and I was like, I fell in love with that. I came in I got my GED, but as far as school, I was a straight up student. I came in there, and I was learning the curriculum with them, which I think what it did was it allowed me to learn how to teach it to them because we were learning it together, right? And so I got really good at tutoring the GED curriculum. And so I just fell in love with teaching. And at one point I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to teach, but for these specific kids, right? And so, yeah, my journey at Breaking Chains started. 24 years old, not fully like, I was probably at that point, I was probably like 75% like that Breaking Chains, but also was hanging on to, for whatever reason, this 25%, right? Which was a lot of like, I worked so hard to build this reputation. I almost lost my freedom for this. It was so hard to let it go because it was at one point so much of my identity, which I think some of these older guys struggle with this to this day. When this guy did 10 years for it, has been stabbed and shot, yeah, it's no wonder they don't want to let it go. That's his identity. That's who he is. He's lost his life, years of his life, almost lost his real life for that. So it's no wonder they don't want to let it go. So I think it was some of that, right? Now, right before I got hired on, so I'll take a few steps back. Right before I hired on, I was still hanging out with that old crowd, and I remember going to a house party. And it was a small little gathering, but a house party. And we were sitting there, and we're drinking, and one of the older guys comes in. And I remember this older guy, when he had gotten out and I met him, I remember I was so proud because he's like, hey, you're Weasel, right? That's what they used to call me. And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, I've heard of you, man. I've heard of you. And I remember feeling so proud of like this guy's approval who just did time and it was like a big homie. And so I see him, I'm like, what's up, dude? And he was acting strange. He was a little quiet. I'm like, oh, that's strange. And I try to give him a beer, and he's like, no, bro, I'm good. So he wasn't drinking. Now me being hyper vigilant, I'm like, okay, something's up. Because this guy's not drinking. He's serious. So I was already buzzing. I started drinking a bunch of water because I'm like, something's going to happen. And sure enough, maybe an hour in, he's like, hey, Weasel, let me talk to you. Let me talk to you in the back. I knew it, bro. I knew what was coming. I knew exactly what was coming. We go back there, and he's like, so what's up with your co-defendant? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, where's he at? I'm like, prison. Because again, that guy was like his third felony. And he's like, oh yeah, how come he's there and you're not? I don't know. I knew exactly where he was going with this, He's like, oh yeah, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I heard otherwise. I'm like, oh yeah, what'd you hear? He's like, that you snitched. I knew that, bro. I knew the moment he asked me to step out and talk to me that was the conversation we were going to have. And I was like, yeah, whatever, bro, if that's what you want to call it. He's like, yeah. And so he started getting really aggressive with me. And I was like intimidated because of his name, because of his reputation. And so I was, bro. I was like, oh, shit. But what happened is I started noticing that the guys I was with weren't really doing anything, which I thought for sure they were like, all right, let's go. Let's fuck this guy up. But they were just sitting there. Now, the reason for that is when I got out, when I found out that I was going to get out, I was like, okay, I was bracing myself to handle this come up, but in prison. But when I found out I was getting out, I started bracing myself to handle it when I got out. So the way I was going to play chess was I'm going to start befriending these dudes to the max. They'd get locked up, put money on their books, be around them, show them love, try to act crazy around them, punch dudes in front of, like around them. Like I want to continue that reputation so that these dudes know that I'm about it, that I'm down. And so when this does come up, those dudes are going to follow my side and be like, no, that dude's down. That feels solid, you know? So when I was looking around and I saw myself with the friend group I was with or the people I was hanging out with, they weren't like, I didn't want to say they had my back, but they were more like, well, we're not going to do anything. And I started noticing that. And then I started kind of acting like, wait a second, bro. Like I'm looking at this dude. I'm like, I might be able to fuck this guy up. But then I'm thinking he probably got a gun. He got a knife. And we're going there and we're kind of like tripping back and forth. And so then I start getting a little confident. And I'm like, shit, bro, I've been in many fights. Like I'm a little bigger, working out, like looking at this dude. And he notices it and he's like, don't try to act brave. And I was like, I ain't trying to act brave. This is who I am. And he's like, all right. And then he's like, well, I fucking like you, bro. You know, but fucking this and that. And then when he said that, and I started seeing some hesitation and he took a couple steps back from the situation, I was like, oh, I think I got this, right? So I started getting confident. I'm like, well, whatever's, bro. I stood up, just kind of squared off a little bit, and we're sitting there. And he's like, well, let me make a call. And he makes a phone call. And he gets on the phone, he starts talking to somebody, and I'm like, shit, who's he talking to? Anyways, this dude's like, get your ass over here right now and bring that shit with you. Get your ass over here. We're over here at fucking homeboy's house. This and that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, who is he talking to? And bring what? You know, I'm like, fucking knife, gun. What's this guy talking about? I'm like, shit. So I'm thinking, who's going to show up? So I go back into the kitchen, bro. I start chugging more water. I'm like, I'm going to get it right now. Like, I'm thinking I'm going to get jumped. Because these dudes are kind of like, well, we're not doing it. I'm like, he's hitting somebody up. They're going to come in. They're going to beat my ass. So I'm going to start running all these dudes. Like, who's it going to be? What are they bringing? An hour passes, back on the phone. Where you at? I told you to fucking get your ass over here, this and that. Whatever's. And it hangs up. And I'm like, oh shit, whoever it is not coming. You know? So I'm like, all right. So he comes up to me and then he acts like he's going to punch me. And I like instinctively just jump back and we kind of square off and he starts laughing. And I was like, man, fuck all this. And I just took off walking. And he's like, hey, Weasel, no, let me give you a ride. I was like, no, fuck that. And I just fucking walked home, bro. And I remember it was a long walk home. And I remember just thinking, I'm like, all right, fuck this. Fuck all this. Get home. I already knew word was going to get around. I was going to start finding out who was going to fall on my side, who was going to fall on the other side, and I started finding out real quickly. The next morning, it was a couple of days later, Monday at work, get a phone call. It was one of the big homies, and he's like, hey, bro, I want to let you know. They're saying green light. I don't know what that means. I love you, dude. I want you to be careful. Watch your back. And that meant a lot to me because this dude, who I still view like a brother, cared about me more than that to tell me, like, be careful, be safe. So I was like, okay, well, at least I got this guy, and yeah, following that months, I started finding out this guy's talking shit. This guy still fucks with me. People calling me, bro, don't worry about that. We got your back. We love you. Other dudes are like, fuck that guy. We're going to beat his ass. I heard they wanted to DP me, discipline me. And then I was like, bro, I'm not jumped in, homie. So this is not going to be a DP. This is going to be war if you try to fuck with me. The funny thing is, bro, all those dudes that I went out of my way to try to prove something to and befriend fell on the other side. All the dudes that I was myself with were my friends, bro. Because I wasn't going out of my way to punch dudes, act crazy, put money on their books, this and that. All the dudes that I could show up and just be myself with and show genuine love to and have a genuine friendship and relationship with fell on my side, bro. I remember talking to a homie and I was like, hey, bro, I want to let you know what's going on. And he looked at me, he's like, you don't got to say shit. I got your back. You don't got to say nothing. And this dude's like jumped in. He's like, I got you, bro. You don't got to worry about that. I got you. Not with me. And I was like, well, I got emotional, bro. I was like, thank you, bro. Like, that meant a lot. And so that happened. So that was the whole falling out.
Was it a relief when you finally got called on it?
It was a huge relief because I was like, well, here we go. Like, I knew this was coming. It came. And now let's navigate this. Right. So what I did, the way I navigated through it was I would stay away from Canyon County. So if I had to go grocery shopping, I would go out to Ada. So I'd go to Meridian, Walmart. If I was going to the movies, I got a girlfriend at the time. We'd go out and spend time out in Ada County because I was staying away from Nampa, right? So
after that time that you had got the information that you were greenlit.
Yeah. So I'd pull up to the gas station. I'd see a car recognized. I see something. I'm like, whoop, next gas station, you know? So I was doing all that. Now I would come across these dudes, but when I'd come across one-on-one, it was like, oh, what's up, dude? I'm like, I know for a fact you don't like me. I know for a fact. And what's up? Nah, bro. I'm like, hey, no, bro. Like, I heard you want to get it. No, bro. Fuck all that. Then I'd run across some other dudes and they're just staring me down. I'm like, oh, this dude wants to get it. But for whatever reason, nothing's popping off. Probably because he's alone, you know? Not saying I'm some badass. I'm not. But I'm like, when shit gets real, I'm like, well, I know for a fact if there was two of them, they would have beat my ass, you know? But I think you mentioned before, I respected more the dudes that kept it real with me and were like, yeah, no, I do want to beat your ass, and didn't have versus the dudes that came up to me. I heard all this, they were talking crap, and then they weren't about it. And so I'd run across these dudes and nothing ever happened. Now, I do think that nothing ever happened because of the dudes who had my back. I swear. It wasn't because they didn't want to fuck with me. They could very easily find me and beat my ass and do whatever they wanted to do. It was the dudes who were affiliated or even gang members who were like, nah, he's with me. You know, I got that guy's back. That's the reason that they didn't touch me, you know? And so I was fortunate in that. So that lasted about so this was that happened before I got hired onto the organization. So at this point, I'm probably 22, 23. So I'm laying low for a good year. And then finally I got hired onto the organization. Now, when I got hired onto the organization, a murder happened here in Nampa. And I found out who it was. Everybody knew who it was, who did the killing before they were even arrested. And people were like, it's just a matter of time. They're going to get arrested. I had heard that little guy, the homie we took in when he had no one, was around there. Didn't partake in the actual murder itself, but was with them or in the car or something. And that broke my heart because I'm like, yep, there it is. All it takes is for you to be in the car, for you to be around them. And now you're going to face this consequence, right? A couple of weeks passed by. At this point, I had lost communication with little guy because I knew he was still heavily involved with them because of family, and I didn't know if he wanted to fuck with me or not. By the way, our communication stopped. I'm like, he does probably wants nothing to do with me. So a couple of weeks from that murder taking place, I get a text message, and it's a random number, and I look at it, and it's little guy. He's like, hey, bro, it's me. Can I talk to you? It's urgent. And so I'm like, wait, this is strange. And he's like, please, bro. I'm like, yeah, for sure. I get off work at this time. You want to go to my house? He's like, yeah. Sure enough, the day ends. I go home, and I'm like, this might be a setup. So I go home, put on my basketball shorts, my Nikes, tie them as tight as possible, have my shirt off, go sit outside. And I'm like, kind of just accepting it at this point. I'm like, no, this is what comes with it. You know, this is what comes with the decisions I made. And so I'm sitting out there. He texts me. He's like, hey, I'm down the street. I go out in the road. I see him walking because I'm trying to scope. I'm like, who's this fool with? I see him walking by himself, like down the street. And I'm standing there and I'm just sitting there. And I'm like, well, it's just him. And he's getting closer. He's getting closer. And now he's close enough where I can see his face. And he just starts crying. And he just literally falls into my arms, bro. He's just crying. And I'm holding him like, what's wrong, bro? And I mean, this fool can't even breathe. You know, I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He's like, well, did you hear what happened? And I was like, yeah. He said, did you hear that I was there? And I was like, yeah. I didn't do anything, bro. I was just there, like this and that. The cops picked me up and they said that if I don't testify, that they're going to charge me with aiding and abetting, I think, first-degree murder or second-degree. And I was like, shit, bro. He's like, I don't know what to do, bro. He's like, I don't want to go to prison. Like, my whole family's been in prison. Like, I don't want to go. Everybody in his family has seriously been in prison. His siblings, parents, he's like, I don't want to go, bro. And I'm holding him. He's like, I don't know what to do. And we're having this conversation. And I was like, well, I don't know what you should do. I know what I would do. That kid who passed away was somebody's loved one. That was somebody's son, sibling. And that's not okay. I'm like, I can't tell you what to do though, bro. And he's crying. He's like, all right, bro, I appreciate it. I'm like, regardless of what you do, bro, I love you, homie. And I just thought about the big homie who gave me that call. He's like, hey, I got you, bro. Like, I love you. I was telling this little guy the same thing. I love you, bro. Whatever you do, homie, like, you know, like, you were with us when you were younger, and we love you. We have your back, bro. Like this. And he's like, all right, bro. And he's crying. He's wiping his tears. And he tells me, he's like, I want to give you something. And he reaches in his back pocket, and he pulls out a folded piece of paper, right? He gives it to me. I open it up, and there's, paragraphs, and there's a highlighted sentence. And I take a look at it, and I read it. Yeah, I sold him the gun, but I didn't know what he was going to do with it. It was the paperwork, right? That pretty much had me dry snitching in the discovery. And so I look at that, and then I realize that he was the one that was supposed to show up that night when that guy was making the phone call. He was going to bring the paperwork to confront me about the paperwork that had me dry snitching on it, with that sentence, right? And I'm like, holy shit! I was looking at him like it was him. Like he was supposed to be bringing that paperwork, which made sense because his family was involved and they were in there. So I'm sure they got a hold of it and then they sent it out and he got to him, right? And like, hey, show everybody this paperwork. And I'm like, holy shit! Like it was him. He was supposed to be, and no wonder he didn't show up. He was hesitant to show up because it was me. So it all started making sense. And he's like, have it, bro. Like, rip it up, tear it up, burn it. I don't care what you do with it. And then this is when I know it was like, I'm done. I'm done with, completely done with that world. Is that I thought about it and then I just folded it up and gave it to him. I'm like, no, bro, you're good. Like, you do with that what you want. He's like, I'm gonna get rid of it. I'm like, yeah, bro. You do with that what you want. And I remember hugging him. He walked away. He still had it. And walking, man, those 2 steps back towards my house, I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, I'm done. I'm done. Next thing you know, I'm working at the organization and I'm able to prove myself that I'm done. I remember thinking, well, all those guys who wanted to fuck me up and all those dudes who don't like me are doing this type of harm to our youth. Well, watch this. Watch this. Look what I'm going to do with our youth. And it's not all of them. I want people to know that. It's not all bad people. You know, people are in that for whatever reason, family, you know, the environment they're growing up with. But it's not all bad people. They're not all criminals, right? But for the ones who do want to harm our youth and want to, in a way, groom them to go through the pain and give their family the pain and other people pain of what they've done to the community, who they're okay doing that, my big fuck you to that is like, watch what we do. Watch this, right? That's why I love my job, bro. Because I get to show up for my kids and be like, you think they love you? This is love. This is support, right? And watch what you can do when somebody believes in you and when somebody eliminates obstacles for you and provides opportunity. There's strangers out there who invest into breaking chains that you will never meet, but they invest into breaking chains so that we can invest in you because they believe in you, right? So watch this. And so that's what we do, bro. But I knew that moment when that happened that I was reborn. I was a whole new person. That I was going to move different and be a different person. And my values and priorities were different. And that again, I wasn't in their world anymore. This is my world.
What did you do to completely shift that identity to being 1 foot out completely?
It was the closure within of me knowing that I didn't live in their world as far as that paperwork. Because you would have took me back 2 years and somebody's like, hey, this is that paperwork. I'd be like, oh shit, I would have yanked that real quick and ripped it up and burned it and buried it. But knowing that I was okay for that to be out in the world, it was almost an acceptance of myself, of who I was, the mistakes I made in life, all the decisions leading to that point. I was accepting it and being like, well, I'm going to live with whatever consequences come with this. But I'm going to have some grace for myself and be okay with what I've done and who I am and move forward with that. Right. And that's where I knew. I was like, okay, well, this is me now. So ever since then, I've been moving like that, and I'm here now. So
How long before you felt like you didn't have to keep looking over your shoulder?
I still look over my shoulder, bro. That doesn't go away.
Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't go away. A couple months back, I ran into somebody that I knew the way he looked at me, if he would do something to me, and I know for a fact he has something on him, right? So I always look over my shoulder. I'm always cautious, right? And me and him stared each other down. And I told him like, "What's up?" And he kind of looked down. But that dude will harm me. But I'm not scared. I'm not living a life in fear is a wasted life. I'm always looking my shoulder, always cautious, hyper vigilant. But I'm not scared, bro. Life's too short to be scared. You know.
What do you think is it that separates you from like the other OGs that are like old and they never leave the gang life?
Opportunity. They never had to break in chains. Straight up. Their whole identity is that. Again, when they've done 5, 10, 15 years for that, and when they have loved ones who have passed away and when they've gotten shot and stabbed, and that's all they have, and they never had the opportunity to be something else, I would hold on to that too. The difference between me and them is that I had breaking chains. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the executive director now. Look at me. I think I'm a clear example of what community looks like when they come together and they say, no, that's not going to happen to our kids. And they invest in a nonprofit like Breaking Chains. I truly believe that. I have homies who are in prison. I have homies who have passed away. And what they didn't have was a Breaking Chains. And I think that is a difference. It doesn't have to be a Breaking Chains. It can be a support system. It can be something else that eliminates obstacles for them and provides opportunity.
Some kind of a mentorship to show them there's another way in life.
Absolutely.
Even for people with a past or a history.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, one of the best things I ever heard was you don't know what's possible until you start experiencing bits of that possible, right? And often that is through mentorship, right? When these kids get to show up and hang out with you guys at the gym, and now they're like, oh shit, we got these older buffed out dudes hanging out with us, teaching us how to work out. And it isn't about trying to be this badass gangster for this other dude. It's like, this dude, look at this dude, is like showing me how to do something productive, and he's reached his goals. And the kids were sharing with me that when they worked out with you yesterday, that you showed them an old picture of you. And they were like, dude, like this dude did that in like 6 months or something, you know? And he's like, that's badass. Like, and they're just proud to come in this morning and talk about how they were at the gym with some badass dudes, bro. Some dudes who care about them, who invest in them. So it's just about community. You know, yeah. I've always said as a community, we belong to each other, and it's our obligation to take care of one another, bro. Right? Each other's kids. Why wouldn't we? We're all in this community together. And so if we can have some compassion, invest in each other, try to look for the good in each other, I think, this place would be a little better.
How can we help out the kids that haven't exactly got expelled from high school, but are still in that area?
So I'm a huge advocate of just staying productive, man. So if these kids are in high school, we need to play sports these days. Fucking expensive, bro. So I think about all the kids who are athletes who can't play sports, or the girls who can't be in cheer or play sports because of how expensive stuff is. And I realized that when I put my daughter through cheer, $2,500 so she can do cheer for a year. I'm thinking about all the other girls who can't, who deserve an opportunity to do so. And it's no wonder that after school they're doing this, or on the weekends they're doing that. I'm like, well, my daughter was getting up at 5 a.m. to go to cheer and doing competitions on the weekend, staying productive. Like, the biggest thing for kids in high school who haven't been expelled is like scholarships for sports, that true support system for them. How can we provide mentors for them? And I don't blame the traditional school setting. They're working with hundreds, thousands of kids every day, right? What makes us unique is that we're so small, and we get to spend individualized time with each individual and invest in each individual, right? So I don't blame the teachers who are working with hundreds of kids or thousands of kids. They're doing what they can with what they have in the parameters that they're in, right? But really, truly investing in these kids and not seeing them just as like this is a kid I just have to get through my class or get through the day. It's like seeing a kid that you really need to invest in. And I know that teachers didn't sign up to be social workers or to be counselors, but at the end of the day, it's what it's become, right? And I've met some amazing, fabulous teachers in the school district here in Nampa, Valley View, Caldwell School. There's some amazing people in the right places, but at times it feels like it's very few of the right people in the right places. But I've met some beautiful, wonderful educators who really care about our kids and who are making a difference in their classroom. And so I think there is good people out there, so yeah.
I'm sure over the years you guys have had hundreds, thousands of kids you've helped get their GEDs. Is there anyone that is sticks out more than, not maybe more than the other, but just that is really on top of your head that you remember?
Yes. So I do have this one individual who will always, have a place in my heart. His name is Jose Hernandez. I met him when he was about 14, 15 years old. And the way I met him was my office window faces the park. And I saw a group of 3 kids out there, and I could tell they were going to fight, their demeanor. They were taking off their shirts, taking off their pants. They had basketball shorts underneath. And so I go out there. I decided to introduce myself. I say, hey, what's up, man? My name is so-and-so. And one of them was like, oh, yeah, I know who you are. You're at Breaking Chains. I'm like, yeah, I'm over here. So I just kind of start talking to him. And one of them was Jose. I met Jose, and I'm like, hey, man, if you ever, for whatever reason, need a, come and look at some different education options, come talk to me. We offer GED, HSC. He's like, all right, cool. But probably a year and a half, he comes by with his mom. He's 16 at this time, 15 or 16. And I get to meet him and his mom. Come to find out, they live right down the street. They're living in a 1-bedroom apartment with mom, Jose, and then the little brother, right? Meet Jose. Jose's on probation. He does have an affiliation. Great kid, great smile. Gets enrolled in our education services. So he starts our education services. And a few months later, it was a Sunday morning, I get a call that a kid in Nampa had been shot 3 times. And as we always do, me and my team started giving each other calls, text messages. Who could it be? They said it's a male, 16-year-old. We started going through our mental roster of all our kids in the classroom, past graduates, hoping that it's not one of them. Coming to find out, it was Jose. So Jose was at a party, ended up getting shot 3 times. Thankfully, the ambulance got there in time. They were able to save his life. We saw Jose at the hospital through FaceTime. He's hurt, bad condition. 11 days later, Jose walks into the doors at Breaking Chains. He's using a walker to walk, all bandaged up. Starts showing the kids. He still had 2 of the bullets inside of him. So he starts showing all the kids. It's nasty. He sits down and grabs his folder and starts getting back to work. And I remember looking at Jose and being like, bro, you take some time off. Like, come back when you're fully healed and ready to go. And Jose was determined. He told me, I want to get my GED because I want to become a barber. And I was like, okay, bro. Well, we got you. And so sure enough, a month later, Jose got his GED. We were so proud of him. And then I go into panic mode because now I have this 16-year-old. He got a GED. He doesn't have to be at school anymore. Now he has all this free time. He had just gotten shot. The last thing I want for him to have is free time or time to be out on the streets. So I give my board members some calls and I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, hey, what can we do for him? And they're like, well, what does he want to do? I'm like, well, he wants to be a barber. And so one of my board members said, all right, well, let's make some calls. She calls me back. She's like, hey, Boise Barber College wants to set up a Zoom call with Jose. I said, okay. Got in contact with them. We set up a Zoom call. Jose came in. They sat down. And Boise Barber College told Jose, hey, we heard you want to become a barber. We heard your story. We want to give you a full ride scholarship to attend. So they gave Jose a full ride scholarship to barber school. He was 16 years old. And we were all in shock.
It's unheard of.
It's the first time ever that they've ever given a full ride scholarship. Jose didn't even know what college was. He was so happy. He hung up the call. He's like, hey, so do I have to live there? And I was like, no, bro, you don't have to live there. You go. It's like normal school. You go, you show up for the day, and you go home. He's like, oh, okay. Now, it was during this time when he was at Boise Barber that he got in more trouble. So now he's looking at commitment to get locked up for at least a year, right? And he has court, and mom gets a hold of me. She's like, hey, he's so close to graduating barber school. Can you show up to court and just for support? I said, absolutely. So I show up to court, bro. I'm sitting there just for moral support. He looks back, he sees me, he smiles, and I'm sitting there. They're going back and forth. I thought I was going to be there for 30 minutes. I've been at a juvenile court. A brief one is like 10 minutes, right? And a long one is probably 30. Bro, we were sitting there for an hour. They're going back and forth, trying to decide what to do. Finally, the judge calls on me because he knows me through Breaking Chains, and he says, can you come up here? And I was like, sure. So he puts me on the stand, swears me in. Next thing you know, I'm testifying for 45 minutes why Jose should get out, right? And I remember at one point, I just stopped and I looked at Jose and I asked the judge, can I address him directly? And the judge said, yeah. And I looked at Jose. I'm like, bro, you're amazing, bro. You're amazing. You can do whatever you want. You survived 3 bullets, brother. Like, you can do this. You can absolutely do this. And I was talking to Jose, and finally, they excused me. Boom, they let him out. Let Jose out immediately, got out that day, went right back to barber school. They were holding his spot because he had been locked up for a little bit, and they were thinking of dropping him. But the people there held his spot because they knew he was in court. They showed up to the court. I forgot. They zoomed in. So that his professors at Boise Barber College zoomed in, and they talked as well. So now he has a support system, right? I'm usually I walk into a courtroom for our kids, and it's mom or grandma, and then the kid, and then you see like on this side you'll see like the prosecutor, you'll see like the probation officer, a counselor, caseworker. So sometimes it feels like there's a whole team on this side and only a couple people on this side. But this time, like Jose had this little army behind him who loved him and cared about him and showed up for him. They let him out. My boy graduates Boise Barber College. At this point, he's 17. He starts cutting hair. He becomes a barbershop owner at 18. And then at 19, he buys 20. I apologize. At 20, he buys his first home and then moves his mom and little brother in. And now mom and little brother live with him at his house, still business owner, running the shop, employing barbers who are older than him, and just holding it down. Now this kid who comes from a low-income, single-parent home, gang affiliation, is now a productive member of the community, paying taxes. contributing back to the community. He does back to school haircuts. The barbershop's called Them Nampa Boys. It's here in Nampa off Garrity. And again, doing back to school cuts, community events, and giving back to the community. And so that to me is one of the success stories and also proof that these kids have dreams too.
Amazing.
No matter where they're from, right? And that if we can eliminate those obstacles, provide opportunity, give them support, and if they work hard, they can achieve what they want.
That's amazing. That's one of the coolest stories I've ever heard.
Yeah, I'm proud of him. He's around here in Napa, so if anybody's ever needing a haircut, check out Them Napa Boys. It's off Garrity. It's an awesome shop. He's an awesome guy. He's only 21 years old. He's just holding it down, running the show. Again, man, come on. I was, how old was I when I bought my home? 36, 35. This dude bought a home at 20. Moved his parents, his mom in, and his little brother. One of the cutest things is when he was telling me, he's like, I bought my home. And I was in the shop. His little brother was in the shop sweeping. And his little brother's like, yeah, I got my own room finally. You know, so he gave his little brother his own room, right? And so when these kids were sleeping on couches or whatnot, like now, like, you know, he set the bar, right, at a different place where now his kids can start from there and work on up. So,
and he's breaking those chains for his brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Leading the way. And the beautiful thing is that after he went to barber school, we've had, I don't know how many kids now try to follow in his footsteps. We've had a bunch of Boise Barber graduates and even Paul Mitchell in Nampa, and it opened those doors, right? And we've had kids go off to CWI or BSU, and now other kids are like, wait a minute, we can do that too? And then they start doing it. They start following their footsteps, right? So they're really like trailblazing and leading the way for these other individuals. And I don't even know if they realize it, but the amount of kids that went to Boise Barber School because of him, I can't even count. He really opened those doors, right? And then we established an awesome relationship with Boise Barber College. They know what Breaking Chains is, who we work with, and now our kids go there, and it's just this community, right?
That's awesome, man. You were talking about graduation. How did you guys' graduation go this last week? Because I remember it was like a groundbreaking thing because you guys it was so big you had to get your own venue.
So in the past years, we've done our graduation at CWI's commencement, which has been great. We love the partnership with CWI. They always mention Breaking Chains, which made us feel a part of it. But last year, we had 84 graduates, and it extended their ceremony by like an hour and a half. And so they were talking about maybe splitting the GED graduates from the other graduates at CWI. And we said, well, if you're going to do that, we'll just do our own. So this past Friday, we finally did our own Breaking Chains Academy graduation. And we had 48 of our students walk the stage. We did it at Grace Bible Church here in Nampa, and I believe capacity is about 600, standing room only.
Wow.
Standing room only. And it was family, it was supporters, it was donors, it was community members, people showing up for our kids. And it was awesome to see our kids walk the stage and then look into the crowd and see just a community of people who believed in them, care about them, and who showed up for them. It was a beautiful ceremony.
And the interesting thing about Breaking Chains is that you guys have both sides of the gangs.
Yes.
So you guys still come together and everything. You guys never have any issues. And how was that graduation, commencement? Mm-hmm. Was it nervous going into that, knowing that you might get families from both sides?
No, we're just so used to it because this is what we do, right? Since the beginning of time, we've had rival gang members in our classroom, right? So one of the initial meetings I have with them when they show up for enrollment is I sit down, and when I know they're gang affiliated, I say, okay, you came to me because you're ready. You're telling me you're ready for this. And if you're here and you're able to attempt to reach your goals and allow others to attempt to reach their goals, then you're at the right place. But if you're just so down and so gangster not to do that quite yet, I understand. I was there too. Just come back when you're ready. Every single person has told me, I'm ready, 100%. Haven't had one single gang altercation, one single issue. I'm not saying they're becoming best friends, but they're sharing space together. And we're one classroom that only sits 15 students. They're able to sit in there and work, at trying to reach their goals and allow the other people to try to reach their goals as well. And so my big goal is, how do I transfer that into the community as a whole? What's happening in the classroom? How do I make sure that when these guys do run into each other at, the movies, at the mall, that they see each other and decide to be like, nah, I go to school with that kid. Now I tell them, if you do something out there, I'm gonna treat it as you did it in my classroom. So there is those expectations, right? So if something out there does happen with one of the other kids in our classroom, I'm gonna treat it like it happened in the classroom. So there's those expectations. At graduation, I like to think that I saw families from rival gangs there, and I like to think that they realize that day is not about them or egos or those values that they hold on to, even if they're in that life. It's about the accomplishments of whether it's a family member or a loved one there walking that stage, right? So nothing happened. I mean, it's always in my mind,
Right.
right? And it's something that could happen in the future. It hasn't happened yet, thankfully. But I think if we continue to foster community and show them what breaking chains is, that we'll be okay. We'll be
Yeah.
fine. And even if it does happen, it comes with the territory, and we'll always figure it out. I don't want no one being harmed. I don't want nothing to happen, but this comes with the territory and the space of the work we're doing.
Sure. Yeah, and I know you said that you guys have a wait list because you have so many people wanting in and stuff. So what's next for Breaking Chains?
Yes, a wait list. So again, my classroom only sits 15 students at a time, effectively, and we did have a wait list that was over 20 students here just a couple weeks ago, just because we're so successful at what we do, but also how we do it and who we do it with. Right? Again, the highest risk kids in the classroom. And so the big thing on our list is to get a bigger space, bigger building, and we are having those conversations now. My thing is with 50, a classroom that only sits 15 students produced 69 graduates in 2025. What can I do with 2 classrooms, right? My impact grows. So that's where my head is at and my mind is at, is to get a bigger space. Also to ensure that I am creating the leaders that Breaking Chains needs so that this work continues after I leave. Because this mission, this work is not only going to be, my leadership will not only be judged on when I was there, it's going to be judged as when I left. Did I leave the right people, the right leaders? So my big dream is to start employing our graduates, right? As kind of what happened to me, employ them so that they can grow within the program because they know the program in and out. So finding the right graduates whom we can invest into, and then they can invest into Breaking Chains to continue the mission. I never want to lose our philosophy, our mission, our vision. I want to continue that.
How can the community help?
Get involved. I'd invite the community to look us up on breakingchainsacademy.org. Send an email, telephone call. Right now, always with the growth is always we need more supporters, more donors. Whether it's a check you can write to Breaking Chains Academy, or you have a resource that we might be able to tap into, feel free to reach out and see how you can get involved. For a good example is the gym, right? That was a connection we made with the community, and now we have a gym day every week that our kids can come in and look forward to participating in that, which was something we didn't have. Another neat thing is that people have reached out, giving us tickets to BSU games and the steelheads and things like that. A lot of the kids we work with do come from low income or single parent homes where they can't go out and do those unique experiences or have fun or spend time with family. One of the things I love to do is when I know a kid has incarcerated mom or dad and then they get out, is to be able to provide something unique for them. Like, hey, here's some tickets to the ballet. Here's some tickets to the front street fights, so that they can spend time together. Because usually if you're just getting out or you are having some hard times, you don't have the means to be able to spend time together and go do some meaningful things, right?
Yeah, just getting out and changing your environment. You were telling me last time about someone that just never even been downtown Nampa.
Yeah, we had one of our graduates. He was living in the Napa Housing Authority, so right across the street. So we rent our space from the Napa Housing Authority. It's their old administrative offices, and this individual lived actually across the street in one of the housing units there. And he came to school. He graduated, and one day I was going to the bank to the Wells Fargo downtown Nampa, and I took him with me. And we were walking around. I parked the car. We were walking around. And he's looking around. He's like, "Oh man, this place is badass." And I was like, "How many times do you come to downtown?" He's like, "Never. This is my first time." This is a kid who literally lives over the bridge, who had never been to downtown Nampa. I was like, "You never come down here?" He's like, "No, we don't have no reason to." So then I'm like, "Oh, this dude's never been to downtown Nampa. I'm gonna take him to downtown Boise, right?" So I'm like, "Let's go get lunch." And he's like, "All right." So I take him to downtown Boise. I'm like, "I'm gonna take him to the top of one of the parking garages so he can see all the buildings or whatnot." And we get up there, and he has his eyes fixed on the Capitol building. He's like, "Hey man, can you take a picture of me next to the Capitol building, like in the background?" I was like, "Absolutely." So he posted up. I took a picture of him, and he's like, "Send it to me, send it to me." And then we're talking. He's like, "Hey, so that's the White House?" And I was like, "Nah, bro, that ain't the White House. That's the Capitol building." And so we had a good discussion on why the difference of the Capitol and the White House. But again, that just like a little testament of like our kids never being exposed to even the city over, 2 cities over, 20 minutes away. And so that's why it's so important for us to expose them to those, new and unique experiences to broaden their horizons. And so that I took him to Buffalo Wild Wings downtown Boise, and he was taking pictures of his wings and putting it on Snap and Instagram. He's like, "This place is badass." I'm like, "Bro, this is literally just like I need to grab something to eat really quick place."
Right.
And for you, this is like a whole new experience. And so what I want to do is to let them know that can be their normal too. We take them to other restaurants and we take them out to Moons for breakfast, and these kids are just like astonished of like the environment. They're like, "This is so fancy," and for us it's just like a casual breakfast, right? And so one thing I remember is it was my girlfriend, whom I'm still with now. Finally starting to go like to these restaurants downtown Boise. I didn't know how to order. The waitress would come and I'd start sweating, bro. I just didn't know like, how do you want your eggs? I'm like, fucking fritos. I don't know, like I didn't even know how to order coffee. So that I'd get invited on these like, let's go get coffee for like a meeting, and my girlfriend would have to text me. I'm like, hey, I need to order a coffee. What do I do? So I'd had it in my phone. So every time I'd go order a coffee, I can be like, hey, I want an iced Americano with almond milk and sugar-free vanilla. I didn't know how to order coffee. I had never been to a coffee shop. I had never been to a place where you have to put the napkin on your lap. Like, I had never been to that. So what I want to do is show them, this is your normal. This is going to be normal. Like, this is where you're going to be. And again, just broaden their horizons.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the law of exposure is just so huge. Once you've been exposed to something, you can't be unexposed.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows you what's possible, and then that's the hope, brings the hope back.
I agree.
Totally agree, man. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on and like sharing all this. This has been amazing. I hope that we can chop these up into reels and get some more people funneling into the breaking change, because what you guys are doing is such an amazing thing, and I can't wait to keep going on Tuesdays and hanging out with the kids at the gym. Like, I know what the gym's done for me, and if it can help other people too, which I know it can, dude, I'm stoked.
I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, thank you for the support. For this opportunity, and then for hanging out with our kids at the gym. It means a lot. A lot of people talk, but when they show up, or when they write a check, that means a lot, bro. So you showing up and putting action to that, it means a lot to us, bro. So thank you again. It makes us feel like our community is just growing, and our kids get to see you and know like, hey, this guy got our back and he cares about us. So we appreciate you, brother.
Always.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
thank
it.
you.